Uh, Thank you all. If you're watching this and you've been appreciating the content, hit that follow button right now. Haven't done so yet, hit that follow button. Make sure notifications are on so you know I'm going live. We do this all the time. Don't want you to miss out on any of our content. Make sure that notification is on. People don't know when I'm like live. They're like, oh, I haven't seen you stream in a while. I'm like always fucking here. I never miss a fucking day. Never. Also, guys, if you need my schedule, it's on the Twitch page here or on the Discord, right? Because if you hit exclamation social and chat, you'll find everything, right? You'll find the Twitter, you'll find the Discord where we do everything. You'll find the TikTok, you'll find the YouTube channel. We have all of that. That's up on all our social media, right? And yeah, if you're confused as to when's Prime's going to be on, right? It's in the schedule I've had for 2 years. Okay, so moving on from there, we'll go to our next topic. Recent shootings in America have spurred conversations about using graphic images to change minds on political issues. Is this a good idea? A good strategy? Should parents show the bodies of their deceased kids to spur gun reform? Should the families of dead soldiers have open casket funerals to protest against war? And would it be irresponsible for the media to show such images? Okay, so this was spurred by like an article specifically about gun violence in terms of the Uvalde shooting, right? And apparently there have been people on TV advocating for like, you know, maybe some sort of open casket funeral or something, to like shake Republicans out of their, you know, well, blatant cruelty, and maybe change some minds there. And the article I sent to these guys was actually anti this strategy, but I really want to explore this, and it didn't have to just be focused on gun reform, right? There's all kinds of things where people suffer some sort of violence, right? And we want change in our society. So would it be fine if we, you know, showed these graphic images? There are some famous cases in the past when we've done that, and they have made a difference. So yeah, I'm really curious what you all have to say about this one. Wick, please.
Not only do I think it's fine, I think that I advocate for things like this. Maybe not this specific case right now. It would depend on the consent of the parents and things like that. But when it comes to showcasing the violence and the devastation by violent acts, war photography and things like that has done immense good societally across the world. It has led to less of a glorification of war in most developed countries, right? And there's a direct causal link between these two things. The horrors of war laid bare to the public, the horrors of violent events laid bare to the public. So not only do they hear about it, not only can they think about it, but they can actually see it. This is it's horrific, but it serves a good purpose. And when it's done well and done right, it can change and sway minds. Showcasing showcasing is probably the wrong word here, but revealing, exposing the actual results of these things. So it's not just theoretical, but people can actually look at it and see it is helpful and it's good and we need to do it. Now, obviously, in the case of the Oldave kids shooting and things like that, obviously you'd want the parents' consent, things like that. Those things come into play. But on the overall concept here, yes, it's a great thing to showcase and to expose the actual results of violence.
Scott, please.
Yeah, so I'm going to go with Wick, but I'm going to go a little bit further than Wick. I agree with everything Wick said, with the exception that I don't give a fuck about the parents' permission to show their dead children, wherever the fuck they are. If you don't like it, get off social media and don't fucking watch the nightly news. I would say that showing photographic evidence of things has been extremely effective, right? You know, the open casket of Emmett Till is a great example of, you know, how it got people to wake up to some of the civil rights issues. I also think that, you know, social media sites and things like that need to stop censoring abortion videos so that we can see that abortions after 10 or 11 weeks involves taking an ice pick to the back of the baby's skull and then hammering it to death and then taking clamps and pulling the body parts out piece by piece and then using a vacuum to suck out the remaining bits of the baby's mutilated corpse. I think you should be able to show those things. And I think, again, with war, I think you ought to be able to show the blown up bits and pieces of bodies. You ought to be able to show the mother carrying, like when Biden decides to pull out, and he does such a dismal pullout that the intelligence community tries to get one win real quick, and blows up an area where there are no terrorists, and a woman is holding her dead children. You ought to be able to show pictures immediately of those dead children and say, this is what the state does to people in other countries. And we ought to have journalists in Somalia right now, where we went back into for no goddamn reason, and show the death. I think you ought to show the children and the babies that are pissing and shitting themselves to death by the hundreds of thousands due to cholera outbreaks in Yemen, that are in many ways spurned on by America's policy of supporting Saudi Arabia and supporting sanctions that are leading to worsening conditions in Yemen. You should show these things. They're effective. Devoid of a story, they can spin a narrative one way or the other. Yeah, are gun control advocates going to use the Uvalde shooting and going to use this to emotionally manipulate people towards the stupid idea of gun control? Of course. And will I use those same images to look at this and say, look at this girl, here's a photo of this girl, she's on Mila's corpse covered in blood, and she waited an hour and 18 minutes. This is what you get when you support the state police instead of private police and private schools that have the ability to take care of your children. And we'll both argue over those photos, but those photos should be shown. I don't believe in censorship of them.
Thank you so much for that, Scott. Scott, he knows how to
He's
draw a
such a
picture.
Marxist. He's a Marxist. That was critical race theory. He brought up race for no reason. Emmett Till, like this guy's an obvious Marxist with his dialectic speech, and he's literally talking about something that happened in the past, and then using that right now to try to like make these assumptions about the present.
You two
He's
just need to
gross.
get married.
I agree.
If only you knew your own literature that well, you'd
let's
actually be able
go
to make it sound
to
convincing.
let's go to guys, these opening statements. Let's switch it back to
All right. So, because of my job, I have reviewed hundreds of hours of some of the most gruesome ways people die. And not only have I or get injured, or lose limbs, develop lesions, really disgusting shit. And not only just watch it and oh, I got to turn away or whatever. No, I got to analyze it and time it. And there are some things that I've seen that do bother me. Even months or years after I've had to review them, and sometimes I'll still think about them, and it'll trigger kind of a sort of wow, that's kind of fucking traumatic. And I there's an interest there, I think, that people have to not develop that kind of psychosis. And then also the very strong interest in people being able to express themselves and to show the truth. I think when it comes to adults, I think when you're an adult, it's got to come down to freedom of speech, right? I do think that it is fine to show adults these images. And I think, that should be something that adults, if they want to see it, right, that's something that they should be absolutely allowed to see, whether it be pro-life stuff or whether it be gun control stuff or whatever pictures you show, anti-war stuff, that's fine. I don't think that stuff should be shown to children. I don't. I think that this stuff should be age restricted. I think any kind of graphic material should be age restricted to children. Children should not be able to look up dead children or dead body parts blown up. Again, because I think that if that can have effects on adults, I can only imagine what effects it might have on children.
let's go to Sonia.
Yeah, so I'm very much with Scott on this one. And I agree with him that I don't care about the consent about the consent of the parents with this. I think we have a big problem with becoming detached and disconnected from humanity itself. Censorship of sensitive and triggering things that we're worried is going to offend people's sensibilities or whatever. This is created a sort of a tone deafness across humanity. You go into other other regions where people don't have as much of a disconnect from their fellow humans and don't have as much of a like a distant relationship with people, where they are oftentimes like in developing countries and they're struggling a lot, they're much more familiar with the atrocities and the suffering, the pain, the death, and they work together as a community to try to do things to mitigate those things regardless of what their actual success is, and that doesn't matter. But the fact is that they care and they work together as a community to try to resolve it. And they can't just walk away from it and hide themselves from it. They can't hide behind the comfort of just social media or a television screen or whatever. It's right there next to them all the time as soon as they leave their home, and oftentimes even in their home. And if you think about like like I don't know if you guys know the story of like what the living room is and what it used to be, the parlor. We used to have a much closer relationship with life and death and a better understanding of what it means to be connected as a community, where the community would come over to the parlor where you would have the the body of your loved one who passed away there for multiple days to say their goodbyes to that loved one. Neighbors would come, they would offer things and bring it together, and there was a relationship with the cycle of life and the fragility of it and the loss of life. And we moved in a direction where we actually renamed in the 1900s, we renamed it to the living room. It was actually a branding effort to move away from what was previously colloquially referred to as the death room, which was the parlor. And this just creates this disconnect. Everything seems so distant. Everything seems almost like it's numbers, or just you're being told about it and it's not really related to you. And the more that we have a relationship with this loss of life and suffering with our fellow human beings, the more likely that we're going to work together, even as a broader global community, to resolve these things and try to mitigate them. So I'm very much with Scott on this.
Don't know if I want my family members literally stinking up the house.
Yeah, because now we're afraid of death. Whereas we
No,
used to live with it.
the smell. No, seriously, literally just the smell. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it'd be fine for embalming. Let's go
Yeah.
to Pan.
Just the smell. Like you're like, my grandma's dead. Fuck her, but God, does she stink? I see how you are, PrimeCayes.
When does that get out? How, like, it's not, it doesn't end when the body leaves, right? That stuff lingers. I'm just saying.
Yeah,
There's a whole process to it.
I'll
Sounds like
vouch
you're
for
speaking
Prime.
from experience.
Yeah, I'll
You've tried
vouch
it
for
out.
Prime here. Dead
Yeah, what's in
body
your
stench
basement?
stays in your house for weeks. It's ridiculous.
I love
Even
Pan.
when you
Pan's
bury
great.
the bodies in the basement, it just seeps up. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
It's
the
like-
problem is the smell rises.
Yeah.
The trick is to actually keep the bodies in the attic.
Oh, and keep it dry up there too.
Oh god. Please, Pan.
Yeah, so a little bit differently from what other people are saying, I think that humans are emotional beings, and disturbing, heart-wrenching photos are often a great tool for getting otherwise rational people to turn off their brain and just start arguing on raw emotion. We've seen pictures of murdered children have been used by Republicans to push anti-immigrant sentiment. Pictures of bin Laden and 9/11 have been used to justify war crimes and discrimination against Muslim citizens. The infamous Willie Horton ad with photos of a scary black rapist have been used to impose draconian tough-on-crime policies that disproportionately affect minorities. I believe that while we as a society ought to try to ensure that our laws are based on reason rather than on raw passion, I understand that that is an unattainable ideal. And it's an unfortunate truth that emotional arguments are just more potent than arguments based on reason. Now, is it responsible for you to show images, images that people might not want to see? If your intention is informing public debate, I would say probably no. I don't think that independent news stations should be in the aisle of political activism. However, if you are, a political activist, obviously your goal is to win at any cost. Some of the stuff that Fabian Scott mentioned earlier, that the Emmett Till open casket was a great tool for advancing racial equality, and this was a good use of this for stuff in that direction. I'm not saying that this can't be used to push good policies, but we should also recognize how often it is used to push bad policies. And when it comes to being an activist, I say you should share away. But if I still want our media system to be independent, And in the case of our media system, I would prefer they didn't show these photos because I think their main function should be to inform the public rather than to convince the public.
Thank you so much, Pan. Is there something with libertarians in preparing, like an opening? All right, you and Lactoid. Just having
I just do it 10 minutes before the panel starts. Trust me, there's not much effort here. I don't care that much.
Okay.
I just thought of some random stuff. I was like, yeah, wait, Willie Horton, you know.
Well, thank you, Pan. I don't want people thinking that we have people who are investigating.
Absolutely not.
No. Low effort here. Low effort, please, fanatic.
It's all supposed to be
Libertarians actually
improvised,
think of their
right?
ideas, right?
I was away. Who's talking shit on libertarians? What's up?
No, we're complimenting them.
We were complimenting libertarians.
We're the
right?
only ones that actually think about our shit before we say it.
We're very pro-libertarian here, though I'm
I
much
feel so
further on the
welcome.
left.
Fanatic, please.
Get out of here, Prague. You
Look,
lost.
I'm gonna just keep it as simple as
Mises
possible.
won your ass.
I don't really like the idea of it. I don't like the idea of using those images because I think thought is already crazily irrational when it comes to these discussions, and I think injecting more emotion into them, because that's all those pictures would mostly provide, is emotion. I think it doesn't really do anything to contribute towards better conversation or better outcomes. I know that like it has been effective at certain times. And sometimes you have to appeal. Like sometimes people have appealed to people's emotions because it seemed like they wouldn't do so. I'm thankful that everybody else would love to call on this black body of Emmett Till, and use that as an example of how like the emotion was actually effective, because it didn't seem like there was any logic or anything that could break through the racist hearts of those white people back from the 50s and the 60s that were so opposed to black freedom and black humanity. So I guess, yeah, sometimes it has been effective. I don't think that it would be effective in most cases, though. It just seems like, yeah, we were kind of at our wits' end when it came to black folks, because white people really, really did and do hate us. Yeah.
Corey doesn't have a racist heart, though. So, Corey, please, what are your thoughts?
Not yet, at least.
We're working on it. We're working on it. Oh, buddy.
So yeah, I think there's two separate concepts to tease out in terms of like the principle, sort of I think what Scott is alluding to, of like the principle of free speech. And like generally speaking, I'm all for transparency. Although I'm more in the camp of like WIC, of like with the parents' permission, at least when it comes to showing minors and horrific images of minors. I think it should be with the parents' permission. But I think there's a separate conversation in terms of like its actual utility. Like, does it actually sway public opinion? Does it actually change people's political positions? I think that's a separate conversation. And I think I think positive emotion trumps negative emotion overall. And I'd rather focus on like other ways of changing people's minds rather than like showing horrific imagery. I would like to think, or I would hope that we don't just see like the horrors of war to be like anti-war. I'm hoping we don't have to see like the horrors of like mass shootings in order to be able to like be for gun control. Just as I'm hoping we don't have to see like any other horror and just be like incited by fear, by grief, by sadness. I'd rather more focus on like the positive. And again, in terms of its actual utility, I'm sure, as alluded to sort of by Fanatic, I'm sure there've been historical certain incidences that powerful imagery has swayed public opinion or political positions. But actually, if you like get down to like the actual scientific data in terms of like, does certain graphical imagery actually change people's behaviors, change people's habits? That's actually a little bit more spotty. And so like, yeah, in terms of like the principle of like transparency, I agree that I don't think there should anything. I don't think anything should be held back in terms of like showing something. But just with the caveat of like WIC, of like showing minors, horrific imagery of minors, that should be with the parents' permission. But I think there's a separate conversation of like, does it actually sway public opinion or political positions? I would err on the side of probably not, actually.
All right. Last but not least, our friend Doobie, please.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like our society is mentally ill and mentally fragile enough that I don't need people like claiming PTSD because the Republican and Democrat parties are competing with like gore and shit on the news, right? Like I think it would immediately become political, and it just seems like a really bad idea to further emotionally charge the debates we've been having.
Okay. Open to the
Okay,
panel.
so I got to push back on several things. really
Yeah, I
quick.
want to push back on Pan too.
Yeah,
But go ahead.
I just
Please
I
do.
just really want to kind of first of all to Zonia, right? Like and to Fabian Liberty there. Like uh, are you telling me that if a parent says I don't want my child's corpse to be displayed on TV, that they should be able to, that the government or the state or the institution or whatever should be able to override that parent's wishes? I think that's horrific.
Not the government or
talking
the
about private
state.
organization.
I think the
Or even a
news.
private organization. You
I
think
don't think the news should have to wait on the parents to confirm it.
Yeah.
I
don't-
disagree.
The
Well,
news has a
when-
job to
but
report.
if
Why?
a parent proactively comes up to the
Right.
news organization and says, "Do
Let's-
not show my child's corpse," you say that the news organization should be able to say, "Fuck you, I'm going to show it anyway."
Yeah, if they want to.
So
Yeah.
here's
Why?
my.
I
here's
know.
my-
I
no,
100%
listen,
disagree with that.
Listen,
Their job
you
is to
disagree with you
report-
disagree with it, right? But follow your logic through, right? Is there an arbitrary amount of time where it becomes acceptable?
What do you mean? We're talking about like right to be forgotten or things like that?
Right.
Like when
so what I'm
even
saying
after
is,
30 years, if a
let's say you're a
parent's like,
parent, right?
"Hey,
Like,
my parent,
what
I
if
don't
if
want my
someone
kids."
told the New York Times, right, in the 1970s that they didn't want their son, who's a soldier in Vietnam's photo taken because he was part of a photo that, or he got blown up? Like, when can we show that photo? Is it when the parents are dead? And when do those rights cease to exist? Do
When you
grandparents
have
not
a
have the
minor,
rights?
when you have a minor who is dead, right?
Okay.
And they're no longer an adult, or they are not an adult yet, and the parent, even later, even if it's a very public event, says, "Hey, news organizations, I'd rather you leave my child's photo out of this." I think that should be respected.
Right,
So
but you didn't
that's
answer my
first
question.
point. That is my
Right,
point.
but you're avoiding the
So-
question. The question
Because your
is
question
there,
doesn't
is there-
relate.
no,
here.
my-
I'm not
it does
I'm not
relate.
following your logic train to nowhere. Okay.
okay, it's not a logic train to nowhere. What I'm saying is you're attempting to establish that
I
a
have another
guardian.
point I want to make without getting sidetracked here.
Okay, but it's not a sidetrack. It's to your specific point. I'm talking about the logic of your point, right? The logic of your point is that a guardian has the exclusive right, a parent or guardian has the exclusive right to demand that photos of their no longer living child, right, be presented publicly. And I'm asking you, if you're establishing that right of a non-living person's, is there an arbitrary time that right exists, or does that right exist for eternity? And does it matter then if the parent dies?
I don't think he's saying it's a right. He's saying that you shouldn't do something against the will of a grieving parent, right? Like, obviously they
This
can.
is
They
like
have
I'm
free
not making
speech.
some kind of dialectic like gobbledygook word
not
salad
asking you a
shit.
di- I'm
No,
not
well,
asking
I
you-
can maybe
you
guys
attempt
are-
to answer
Jesus
that
Christ,
question.
all right.
Listen to this. Think about this. So think about the
Basic
photos.
logic, people.
Think about the
Jesus.
photos in Vietnam that inspired the protests, right? Think about the napalm girl, right, who is walking down the street with burns across her body. There
On
was
fire.
the guy
That was
on fire.
Korea.
Was that one the Korean War? I think that was
Yeah.
Vietnam. No,
No,
that
that
was
was-
Vietnam.
That's Korea. But
Napalm
it's not
Girl.
important though. Napalm
But-
Girl is Korean.
But the no, because I remember that was
It
one of the
doesn't
big
matter.
things that
It doesn't
inspired.
matter.
Well, the reason why is because I'm talking about it inspiring the protests against the Vietnam War, and
Yeah, you're right. It's Vietnam.
and same thing with the guy with the gun to his head, right? That one with the American soldiers holding a gun to the guy's head. There are a lot of these very visceral, graphic images of people being victimized, even children, because of what we
Yes.
found out to be an unjust war. But we
Yes.
really wouldn't have if we hadn't inspired people to
Certainly.
respond
That's
to
why
that
I'm
and protest
for
it.
war
Right, but,
photography. That's
do
why
you
I'm
think
for
it's
these. Just real
possible?
quick,
And
let me
that's-
finish.
and
That's why I'm
so-
for these things. But what I'm had the parents or the custodians or the guardians or whoever said, "Hey, please leave my specific child out of this," then I think it would be monstrous not to fulfill the will of the parents in that case. Especially
job-
considering there are a lot There were a lot of photos that could have been used for these
But
things.
th-
There
but
were a
then you're
lot of
bringing
evocative imagery, evocative
Yeah.
photos of death and destruction in the cases of war, mass shootings,
So,
whatever. That
Are you
could
just
be
making a
fine.
moral
what you're
claim to the
doing is you're
editors that they
placing
shouldn't because
but
you
then
think
you're
it would be bad?
placing the reporter, the news agency and the reporters into the position of having to make
Having to
these
respect the rights of parents? Sure.
having
Yeah.
to
I mean,
no,
I'm okay with that.
it's
Well, no,
you're telling them to start picking and choosing what it is they should report on when the
No,
reality is
Yeah,
they should be
well,
well, they
so
reporting
do. They
on
at
do
least
pick and
I
choose,
I
Wait,
right?
but
can
you can
speak.
Like,
report on a
I
thing
No.
without
Yeah.
showing like images of it,
And
right? So,
Yeah, there's
so if
also
No,
there's
because
like a
that's but
publication
that's
bans, like at least in Canada, certain parts of Canada, at least in my
yeah.
province, like when children are involved in certain whatever, not crimes, but like there's publication bans that you can't publish the name of this child. And so like is that
Yeah,
a
we
form
have
of
that
censorship?
here. Like
Yeah,
publishing
exactly. So
names of
like
children and identities of them. Yeah, that's definitely
right,
something that we've had to
but then showing the horrific, the potential like horrific graphic imagery of them if they're
and
dead, that's
again,
okay. Like
only
well, no,
in the
Yeah,
specific
the
case
wait,
where the parent has
there's a totally different logic
specifically
there.
when
yeah,
the
so
parent I don't care about your logic
like
trees. When this
I know you
parent
don't
has
care about logic or
specifically
truth.
like, I don't
we're
care. This is
talking about just
logic and truth are not the same thing.
we're
So,
talking about
first of
just
all, like,
reporting
yeah,
on
when we talk
just
about in a
reporting.
specific instance where the specific parent of that specific child has requested specifically that specific image. In general, that if there was no contestation made or no one said anything, right? I don't think that they should have to opt in. I think they should have to opt out. Does
Oh,
that
What
make
if
sense?
Scott,
what
I
if
don't think I actually believe that.
what
hold
if
on,
that was
hold on,
was
Scott.
the napalm girl
Scott.
photo and then we didn't end up rallying people as a result?
Scott, what's the other
We
way
would have
around
won the
though?
war.
Hold on, Scott, the other way around. So you're
Sure.
saying that it's reasonable to withhold names of children until
I
they
didn't say
notify
it
the
was
family.
necessarily reasonable. I said that the justification from the state is
So
different,
you think
right?
that's not reasonable?
The
To withhold
names
names?
Yeah.
names
I don't-
are fine to withhold. That's
Interesting.
fine.
Okay, I'll go back to you. But Scott, what do you think
But
that
yeah,
too?
so Corey says, like, well, hey, and we have the same thing in America, right? We don't use images of minors and children, but the difference is in the names, but we're identifying living people, right? And so the cause for concern that the state has justified in terms of those crimes that they may have committed or things that they've been involved in is that these individuals are that they don't have the ability to consent to that information. There's not a public interest, etc. It's very different than someone that is no longer alive. Now we're talking about parental guardianship.
So I'm asking. I'm asking. I just want to get this point out quickly, right? So are you saying that you would, in terms of a person dying, right, a child dying, that you would not withhold that name at all?
I don't think so. Like, I think public photography is private property.
No, please just
owned
answer
by-
the question. Just answer the question, please. Just,
I'm explaining the question.
He has
very
to go down
quickly.
the
oh
logic
my
tree.
God.
I'm not going down a logic tree, right? It's very simple, right? One is private property, the photo taken in public. Photos that parents own is their private property. They have the right to exclude giving them to or
Still
having
haven't
them
answered
used
my
by the
question.
press. In terms of, relax for just a second. In terms of names, there's no justification for the name being anyone's property. Like, no one
Oh.
owns a name. No one has rights to a name. You
Ah.
can report the name of dead children.
Okay, interesting. So my
bailed out
point.
Wick.
So
Zonia
my
was
point-
about to nail Wick, and you just totally bailed him out. 'Cause she was
I-
about
I
to
did
ask
Talk about
that.
bailing out.
I-
I'm the only one
I-
apparently that gives a fuck
So
about logic and
Zonia,
truth.
Zonia, then if you think you should withhold names, correct?
Yeah, I think it's a good idea to withhold names to prevent things like if the child survives, prevent them.
No, they're dead.
from
They're dead.
being-
They're dead.
If they're dead, then more to protect the family so that things don't get traced to them.
But hold on.
Yeah.
You'll show their mangled corpse, right? And maybe a family
Protecting
member,
the family from other
and
people,
maybe
not from their own
and-
experiences of the situation.
Oh, okay. So that part's not important. So like
Hey,
you'll
can I
show a
please?
mangled corpse. Hold on, a mangled corpse of a child. You'll put that on a newsstand, right? And maybe a parent didn't even know that their kid was dead until looking
Well,
at
I
that.
wouldn't.
Like
I wouldn't do that. That's morally fucked up. I wouldn't do that.
Oh boy. Okay, whatever. Guys,
I'm
jump in.
saying,
Oh, so-
okay, so what I'm talking about is the news agency's job is to report, right? What you're talking about is that the parent should be able to come in and say, you're not allowed to report this specific thing.
But then you agree on then you
No,
agree on
we're
some
not
limitations.
talking about
So
reporting.
the
We're
principle
talking
of
about the
reporting,
way in
like,
which it's reported, right? There, you
yeah,
could report things in different ways. Yes, there is a public interest
Yes, we
in
can
knowing about
sanitize
events,
everything so
but
that nobody
simply
ever gets
being
offended
able,
and so that we
at the
never
request of
inspire
a
anybody.
parent, at the request of a
But
parent who could be like, what do you think it would be like
I
when you do not
agree,
want your
Wick, I
image of
agree,
your
Wick, that we
mangled
can
child's corpse
sanitize
to be
everything so that nothing is
displayed
ever inspiring. Nobody
constantly?
is ever
You don't think
motivated to
that
protest
the
against
parent
anything.
should have the
Nobody's ever
right
motivated to
and
push
the
back on
ability
anything.
to say, "Look,
But
I would rather
sorry,
not have this on the
it's
TV
better
24
it's
hours
it's
a
better to
day
allow
so
them
I
to
can
report on the
read them,
reality of
right?"
the situation.
Right?
Definitely not the
Okay,
right Wick. I mean, think about it like this.
Look,
What
no,
if
let's
there
go.
were a lot
look,
of
this is
different photos in
nonsense.
Vietnam?
This is
There were no,
nonsense.
it's not.
No,
There
It
were
is
lots.
it's
nonsense.
not nonsense.
Wick, there was a lot of photos in Vietnam. I'll give you that. But if let's say there was only one camera that got out, right? There's one photo that can change public opinion on the Vietnam War, but the parent says no. Would you still say in that case
Yes.
that the parents have? So you're basically just condemning thousands of
No,
people to
what
die
I'm
in the
doing is
Vietnam
I'm
War?
holding the rights of an individual parent to say, "No, I would rather have the pictures and the photos
You would
of
rather
my
1,000
mangled
more
child."
Vietnamese children
But
die.
you can't justify your own right that you're claiming.
What are you talking about
Because logic
justify?
bad.
What are you
Like
talking
you
about
refuse
right
you
has to
refuse
go.
to defend the
what do I
logic of
need
your
to
own position.
justify
Like
of
he's
that?
saying,
When
he's
The
saying
someone
there's
goes,
logic
"Hey,
of it.
I don't want
what
my
he's saying is
child."
You're literally just doing
Need-
fifis, and then when asked about it, you're like, I'm not going down the logic of this.
So wait, I want you to be able to
You
respond.
can
Then I
so
gotta go.
can't try it.
I'm not going to
Oh,
debate.
okay. I want Wick to
I'm
respond.
not going to
and
debate you.
I
want
want
a fucking debate
I
panel?
want to Wick.
No, I'm not going to debate with someone
Wick,
who
respond. Then Lactoid. Then Doobie, please.
So when it comes down to it, there is a necessary right to privacy that I think should be upheld. And when an individual parent or an individual guardian or individual family member says, "Hey, I don't want my family member's corpse to be displayed publicly for whatever reason," I think that should be honored. I think that the news organizations, while they should still be able to report on the event, right? They can do so in such a way that still honors the request of privacy.
What does
and
this
not-
have to
Oh,
do
sorry.
with privacy?
I got.
What does it have to do with privacy?
No,
No,
he doesn't
he's
have-
responding
I
to
got
me,
it.
Prime.
I
Let me-
got
come
it.
on.
I know. I
Look,
got
your
a
audience
bunch.
loves it. Your audience
my
is
God.
cheering us on.
Yes, great.
So
I got.
let me
Oh
respond.
my God! No! Seriously, I got.
It's Zonia. She's the nicest person in the world.
Oh
If she
my
wants
God,
to
that's
clap
fine.
back, let her.
Lactoid.
Yeah. So Wick, I understand your emotion here. I just for like very base level like philosophical reasons, I can't agree with you. I do think that parents shouldn't have like a veto or control over something that is no longer their child. If we're just being honest, it's just it's true. It's just it's just at that point the child is gone.
That's
Hold
horrific.
I know it's
This is
horrific.
a great example of why
So
emotion ruins people's brains. Wick.
Hold on. So the child is gone, and that's why it's a tragedy, right? The child is no longer there.
No, there are
and
plenty
hold
of
on.
reasons why
What
this
if they're
is
not
hard.
gone? Like you
So-
can be mutilated and still alive.
So hold on.
Is
In
that
that case,
safe?
yes.
Yeah.
If the child is still alive, totally
Yeah.
different analysis for
Oh,
sure.
now, but
For sure.
yeah.
Because now there's a person there, right?
And-
If,
and
if,
now
if, hold on,
you-
if it's a corpse, it's not a person. Corpses
But
are
there
not
is still
people.
a person in this equation who is living. It's the living
So-
family
no,
member who is going to be traumatized over and over and over again by having to see the
Sure.
picture of their dead corpse, their child's
So-
dead
Oh,
corpse.
this is maybe where we can build the bridge, right? Because I do think there should be restrictions on the viewing of this material so children don't see it, right? So or like if you don't want to see it, like if you don't want to click past the age filter or whatever, you don't have to. Because that was the point. That was like basically my only restriction that I want to have on this, which is like, does anybody here find it troubling the fact that like maybe you have like an 8-year-old who's like walking past and like they see like a bunch of pictures of like their classmates gunned down. I mean, that wouldn't that like for an 8-year-old be a little bit much?
I think if you were an 8-year-old, the actual shooting would probably be a little bit more. Like I think that's probably like the last of their
What do you mean,
words.
like on a billboard?
So
Yeah, like on a billboard or like if it comes up on the news like just after their like Teletubbies program. I don't fucking know. Like I'm
Right,
concerned.
this is not. This is your responsibility as a
Okay,
parent.
so
Like, it's the responsibility of
Some
private
kids don't
corporate.
have good parents.
Yeah,
Okay,
but
well, the fact that some kids have shitty parents shouldn't justify that like certain images need to be censored for the entirety of the United States.
Would you
okay,
allow
but
me to walk into an elementary school blasting like porn, or do we have like some realization that like maybe we should be protecting children from like explicit images?
So you're asking me if I would allow you to go into a public school blasting
Or,
porn?
or stand on the sidewalk,
Obviously not.
stand on the sidewalk with a big billboard showing like hardcore graphic pornography. Are you okay with that?
No, of course I'm not. That's
Okay,
public property.
are you okay with me standing on a sidewalk holding up pictures of slain children?
Where? It depends on what you're talking about. Like we have to look at the like we have to look
In
like
any
where
scenario,
on the sidewalk.
He's going down the logic tree,
Yes.
folks.
In
Come on,
any-
you gotta
hold on,
take
in
that
any-
pain
in-
to
in-
fucking
in-
do it.
in any scenario,
Yes.
you cannot
Yes.
show hardcore pornography to children. Maybe you also shouldn't be allowed to show them the fucking dead bodies of their slain classmates.
I'm okay. I've already answered your question. Yes, I'm okay with you finding pictures of Uvalde shooting people and going to your local Applebee's and being like, check out the pictures of these dead babies at
Even
Applebee's,
when the
and
children-
then the Applebee's can kick them the fuck out, and then we can excise them from their fucking property, and then that guy can then go around the sidewalk and say, look at this shit, and then when they're doing that, you can go, holy shit, Timmy, look away, and fucking it's your job as a fucking parent to police these things. It's not the job of the state to decide what is and isn't appropriate language and appropriate photography.
Okay,
Like it's
you
the
act-
job as
no,
you
no,
as
no,
a
you
moral
didn't answer my question.
agent, the individual. to
Right,
not
so when
do
it comes
these
to-
things.
Wait. So hold on.
Okay,
You
let
actually
me-
you actually did not answer my question. So my specific question was, if I'm standing on a public sidewalk, okay, I'm
Mhm.
not on private property, and I got
Right.
a big billboard of hardcore porn, and I put it right up in front of like the fucking entrance to the elementary school. Do you think that should
Right.
be okay because I'm not on private property?
I think public property is already a sin against man and a theft from the people to begin with.
Answer the question.
That's a cop out, dude. That's a cop out.
That's a
Come
cop
It's not a
on.
cop out. I'm
That's
for
a-
the total
that's a-
private.
Oh,
property.
wait, 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 That's a cop out.
Okay, hold on. So here's where I think there's some.
It's not a fucking cop out.
Okay,
Like,
okay,
I'm, like
hold on, let me explain. You're saying it's not a cop out. Yet before with the Applebee's example, in your specific response, you said if Applebee's kicks you out, you can march down the sidewalk, the public
Yes.
property, with the pictures of the dead children. And so my one question is like, remove the pictures of the dead children, hardcore gay porn, or like drag
dude.
queens fucking
Wait,
each
why
other.
is it specifically gay porn?
okay, so
I
you're on
don't know.
public
That's the
property.
most fun
You're on
porn.
public property.
It could be
I want to
straight
get. I
porn.
want to.
I don't
listen,
know.
We're dealing with two separate questions. Which
Show
one is
me your
what do you-
browser
what do you find-
history.
what do you find to be moral? And this is a problem. Is many people equate these two things. When you can't equate ethics, right, to your legal system. They're not the same thing. So in one example, I'm talking about legal system, and in other examples, I'm talking about ethics. I think it's wrong to do that. I think it's wrong to go around and try and show people photos of dead children. But when we're talking about the legal system, it's complicated when it's public property because there's no owner of the property. So what I would advocate for is a Hoppian example, right? Is that whilst we still have public property, you would hope that the state enforces laws and enforces behavior on said public property, much akin to what they assume the average private property owner would do, right? Which would be not allowing, blasting of fucking, things like that. But the problem is that we don't have private property. So there's a clash with the ability to maintain free speech, right? Like, is a burning a flag something that's allowed? On some private property it would, and some private property it wouldn't, but we have to enshrine in
No, burning
public
the
property
flag is
First
protected
Amendment speech.
So.
Exactly. That's what I mean, is that we have conflict because we have
But burning
public property.
my flag specifically is
The
something I can object
existence
to and be
of-
allowed
the
to do so.
existence of
you
public
moron.
property is
Look,
a conflict in and of
just
itself.
because you can burn
Because we're
flags and that
vying
be
for control of the
protected
same
by
property.
the free speech,
Okay, well-
right?
So,
doesn't mean you can burn my flag.
so
right?
I have a question.
My
I
flag.
still
Hold
don't-
on.
I still
I
don't
have
have
a
an
question
answer.
for Scott.
Oh,
And
And I
I
wait.
still want to push back on what Vic said earlier.
Okay.
Doesn't
We
make that
will
much
have order. We will have order. All right. So Lactoid, I want you to finish your point. All right. Then we're gonna go to Doobie. Then we're gonna go to Zonia. Then we're gonna go to Pan. And I want Fanac to come in here because I feel it's moral outreach. All right. So we'll go through that as well. All right, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't think that and if somebody here on the panel like has like a firm answer to this, I would like to hear it. But I haven't heard a strong rebuttal to the sense of, there is an obligation here of I believe there is a state obligation this is maybe where I differ. I do believe there is a state obligation to protect children. Okay. And I think that children should not have to walk out of the elementary school and view potentially harmful material. I think that it should be, adults should be able to view it for sure. If we're in an environment where, there's only adults, or there's like a reasonable expectation there's only going to be adults, yeah, like maybe that stuff can be viewed, right? And that stuff can be presented. But when we have children, when we have like, especially children who might have known the children who fucking died, like we can't have them exposed to that. We just can't. So
QB.
Wow. Yeah, so I guess I'm just kind of curious as to like where the line is for you guys, because it seems like you're saying that if I were like a media organization and my incentive was to draw attention, draw clicks, etc., I could run into like the crime scene where a child's been like raped and killed, and take pictures of the child's dead mangled body with their panties around their ankles, post it all over the internet, and be like, oh God, this kid was just raped. Here's a picture of it. Right? Or even if it's not a child, just like a woman or like a person. I just rush out to the crime scene, take pictures of them, of their genitals, of their boobs that are out because they've been raped to death, right? And just post it all over the fucking internet for everybody to see, and that's totally fine. And fuck what the family cares about it. Right? I think you guys are framing this around like changing the world with like a photograph. Right? If we had like a system that allowed this sort of thing, what would actually be happening 99.99% of the time is people taking pictures of dead bodies or crime scenes and plastering them all over the fucking internet. Right? That's what we're actually talking about. Right? So that's not going to change the world. It's not going to help anybody. It's going to make people some money, I guess, if you're into websites where they post images of dead naked women. But that just seems totally like it seems totally irrational that we'd allow people to do that.
To be fair, the discussion is whether the media should, not like I could say that that would be really wrong for a random person to do it, but I think media has some discretion.
Don't do that. Okay, everybody's media. Okay, there's no license you need to get to be like a journalist, right? In the modern world,
there's a distinction
to get access to crime.
You can make a fucking YouTube channel.
Yeah, you got to be.
There's a distinction between, and Lactoid is the only person I think actually making it. The distinction between legal, right, and what is moral. You as a person shouldn't do that, and you as a consumer, if the New York Times constantly did shit like that, you should tell New York Times to go fuck themselves, right? But if the New York Times didn't do that regularly, because that's the type of content that they want their readers to enjoy, and they respect that in certain regards, your morals should align with the media that you consume. It is your job as a parent to monitor what your child is doing on the fucking internet. Now, in the I'm not going down the public-private property with sidewalks and shit, right? Again, but you get what I'm saying here is that it is the parent's job to determine what
that's
you consume.
Not okay, but
that's
if not.
You
I'm
are
not
a
afraid
private
of
property owner. You should have a legal right to anything that is in public that you photograph.
Yeah, my
and
primary
sell
concern.
It to whomever you want.
My primary concern isn't protecting children. It's like everybody, right? I think everybody would be harmed if people were allowed to rush onto crime scenes, take pictures of dead bodies, rape victims.
You're saying everybody,
and
like
then,
that means
okay,
something. We're talking about
it means anybody that calls themselves a journalist that has a phone. How do you get a press badge?
Press badges are what get you access to crime scenes.
How do you get a press badge?
Well, yeah, but like
you get permission from whatever like event organizer.
No, if you want access to crime scenes, you need to actually get.
You show up before the cops get there. That's how you get access to crime scenes.
Well,
right? Or you sneak in.
That already happens. That's the thing that happens today.
People
show up at the beginning.
It's called TMZ.
Well, not even TMZ. Just everyday people who happen to be close to the crime scene go and take pictures and post them everywhere.
Yeah,
right?
and that's not a good thing. You're saying this is a great thing, and it should happen. We should allow it because somehow we're going to change the world by allowing people to take pictures of rape victims.
I'm saying that the press, the news, should stop censoring everything. That's what I'm saying.
The press and the news is what I'm talking about.
Names, you like your principle of no censorship. You're for a publication ban for minors, but then the horrific imagery,
for the identities of minors, yeah.
Yeah, but
why?
You agree to some limitations, like your guiding principle of no censorship and a free for all. like stop saying that because that's not true. You agree.
Oh, you're talking about
I can
Scott.
say
Not,
it.
you're talking about Scott, not
is
me.
by
That's
far
Scott's
the most
position.
That's
This is
not
by
my
far the
position.
Hold
most
on, wait.
internet
Okay, so like,
conversation
what's
I've ever heard in my life. I don't know
but
in any
I
circle,
think
in anywhere where any people would literally be arguing about whether or not it's realistic to be able to say, you know what, yes, you can just take dead bodies and put them everywhere. And the legal question, I guess it's so far removed from what I think the actual issue is. I think it really just boils down to a moral issue. If I'm a photographer and I'm taking pictures of a situation and it's somebody's dead relative and they're like, hey, for out of respect for us, like we're living in the real world today. We don't know what ads are gonna happen on freaking social media, or if YouTube is gonna recommend a video or something and it's gonna be in the thumbnail or whatever the freak. Like, I don't want, or out of respect and decency for this person, for this my deceased loved one, I don't want their image being used in this way. To be able to say, I don't care about your feelings, about your grieving process. I don't care about anything that has to do with that. I'm saying that it's a buck for me and it serves my political aims. So I should be able to override your grieving process, the dignity of the person that your loved one that has died. And I think I should be able to do whatever I think fits my political narrative. This is so freaking internet based. I
But
can't.
you
So
just connected the
we
legal. You just
already
connected at the very end. You just connected the legal and the moral. You started off perfect, right? That it is immoral to do that, in your opinion. That you shouldn't do that. That you should be responsible as a journalist, and that you shouldn't engage in that behavior. But then you connected the legal by saying, I shouldn't be able to do that. If you shouldn't be able to do that, then what is the system that you are advocating for that legally requires that people be
I'm
punished
sorry, maybe
or
I
stopped from
misspoke.
doing it?
I'm not talking about I shouldn't be able legally. What I'm saying is that you shouldn't do it morally. I don't know
Yeah,
about like
I
the
agree with that
legal
probably
thing,
for
and
the
I
most
think
part.
it's
Yeah.
just
so
disgusting that
We
we're
all
even
agree with
having
that
this
so
morally, though.
conversation.
yeah,
What?
the catch that
I don't know.
the
In your
thing that
opening
I'm
statements,
trying to
Fabian, you said, and I quote,
the,
"Fuck the parents."
so
Well, fuck the parents in terms of legal rights. Like, there's a difference between legal and moral.
the problem here is that we do have a situation where censorship boards are dictating what can and can't be seen. And there have been many situations where there was the mainstream media trying to shut down information on what was going on, for instance, with ISIS, and trying to get those videos taken down and get those images taken down. And what would we have done? We have just simply had to trust, oh, ISIS is doing these horrific things. No, it really helps to actually see those things and go, holy shit, look at what these
Or
fucking people are
Gitmo.
doing.
Gitmo.
Look, I
Gitmo
agree
is another
with
one.
your point,
So
Sonia. I
when
agree with your overall point.
when you've got these entities who are trying to protect people's minds effectively, right? Trying to not offend people, trying to toe this line of what they see as decency. You end up in this situation where there ends up being inevitably excessive censorship that prevents you from being able to actually truly see what is going on.
Yeah,
Okay,
I
so
am 100% with you in that, Zonia. I think that, like, barring any specific exceptions made by parents or family members or anything like that, that yes, publications should be able to show the horrors of an event and things like that. I think that
But you
the
said
staging
You're advocating.
earlier, you
and
said
things like that.
advocating a
earlier that
law.
I said earlier
you said
that if a
earlier.
specific family member requests that their child or loved one not be photographed and shown in that they should have the right to do so, and it should be respected. That
Is
is my
that a
only
legal
exception.
thing? Is that a legal
If
right?
you're narrowing that down to a single clause that is the parents of a deceased child or of let's
A
say
family member or something, like a grandparent, you know,
well, because you really need to frame something like
brother,
that in
sister.
because what you qualified it with before is the traumatizing effect of them seeing it. But the problem is you can say that about almost
Well,
anything.
no,
Like
I was saying that as one
today
reason that they
people
would want to
because
ask that their child not be
well,
shown.
because today people would justify so many things as being traumatizing that we shouldn't be censoring. That we
So
should actually.
I agree with you, but I think that in the case that of a
Wick, from the other
Hmm,
side of this. Wick, from the other side of this.
sure.
Emmett Till, right? Everyone said Emmett Till, good thing that we saw that images, right? So his mother wanted to do an open casket, to show the world what they did to her son, right? Like the abuse that he suffered. What if his father said no?
Well, that's a tricky question. I don't know the answer to that, to be very
I
frank with
don't know
you.
the
I
answer to
don't.
that either,
I
because
don't
it's such
know.
a family thing, right?
And that's the thing. But I think that if the family is united, if both of them had said, "No, I don't want this shown,"
No,
right?
that's
Then
no, that's
there
easy. Yes,
should
I
Well,
think
for
that's easy. But I'm
No,
yeah,
saying,
but
but
funerals
Brian,
well,
are
it
sir, if the
seems easy,
father
but it's
said
been
no,
argued against on this panel
if the
for
father said no, then obviously the answer is no. He's the man of the house. He gets to say whatever is the final say regarding his son. It's his boy. Obviously, the answer is no.
so with funerals, it's very
Ace.
different.
not gonna take the bait. Not gonna take the bait.
Even with military
I would
even
take the bait.
So
Not gonna do
sick.
it.
even with military funerals, the parents still have some say in in that kind of thing. So funerals are very different. It's a very private thing, even with military ones and such. So that's
You agree to some censorship then.
that's a private thing, right? That's the
Well,
family.
so where's your distinction between? So is someone's the imagery of
We've changed the
a
topic,
a
so we're
child's
talking about
mutilated
whether
body? That's not private.
we're talking about a so you're talking about a crime scene. I'm talking or a war situation,
Sure,
right?
yeah.
War torn area.
They're just
I,
horrific
I'm
imagery of children generally.
I'm talking about how people choose how they want to run their particular funeral, right? So
Well, yeah,
that's
yeah,
very
they had
different.
that right to do
Like,
it. She did an
like
open casket on
I wouldn't
purpose.
advocate for the press being able to kick down the door of the funeral home and take all the
That's
pictures
no,
and
they're
open up the
in
casket and take all the
public.
Wait,
pictures.
wait,
They're in a
wait, wait,
That
wait,
would
graveyard.
be private property.
They're in a
Can
graveyard.
I ask? Can I ask?
They're in a graveyard. Go ahead.
I have an interesting question, real quick. I guess this is to Fabian, Scott, and then also Zonia, and I guess everyone else who is like fine with like sort of people taking pictures and stuff. What if instead of taking a picture of the body, like I took the body and I ran off with it? Like, because like if we say legally fuck the parents, right? They don't have like a basis like in do they have like property rights over the body or not?
Look,
That's
we
a
all know
super
that you
That's
argued
what
once
state
about
does, I'd say.
necrophilia, and I know where this is
Yeah,
going, and I'm
this
gonna head this
was-
off the
Good
This
path.
is
reference.
Or hey, what if they just
Good
they
reference.
moved an arm or the face so that it looks better in the photograph? They have a more dramatic picture. They mess with the body.
Yeah, I think.
I don't
so I
think anybody should be touching the body other
Why-
than
why not?
Because here's the thing: if you say
I
that
can-
like
well,
they
no, you
shouldn't
can't
be able to
tell me
take
what I say first, right? Like,
no,
you-
just, I think he's talking to Zonia.
Well,
okay.
I'm just saying, like, okay, according to my logic train here, if someone were to say that the child, like, is, like, or I guess the body is the property of the parent, then you could say, okay, well, you're not allowed to, like, photograph my property. But if you say it's not the property of the parent, so anybody can photograph it, then assumedly someone could just take the body and like run off with it and then do whatever, right?
No, so there's a very see, like, and I know you're a lawyer, so you'll appreciate this, right? So there's a difference between photographing property that has a reasonable expectation of privacy, right? Whether or not it's in public, and whether or not you move or capture the property. So even if you say that it's property, which is what I would say, that the property is defaulted to the guardians, right? That taking a
Okay.
photo in a public place, right, is not a violation of the property of the body. But
What if it's a
taking
private
the
place?
body, right? Well, if it's a private place, then it's up
Well,
to the private
if it's
property
a-
owner to determine.
or a crime scene, in which case the police are there, and then
Yeah,
it
I mean, like
becomes
we have a monopoly. We have
then
a
it
private,
becomes a
like, we
crime
live in a
scene
state,
crime
right? Like, so
investigation, yeah.
of course, yeah, I'll concede that in our current state system,
in
right?
the current
But
system, yeah.
right in the current system, I'll concede that. But if you're on public property, you don't have a reasonable expectation of privacy in public property. The owner is the individual that mixes their labor with the product, and the product is the photograph. The product, they don't have a right to claim the body because it's not their property.
Okay, so why does why under which I agree with your theory of property, why is the body the property of the parents? Did they mix their labor in with the body?
Well, presumably they're the default parent because they absolutely mix their labor. We might even call it childbirth might be a form of labor in a certain way, right?
So you own your you own your child's
own your
body
children-
for how long?
Till death.
Well, I would say you are the guardianship of the will of the children, right? So I wouldn't say that you're actually the owner of children, but you're just like when someone has a will or when someone has
They're not private property.
Right. Well, the body no longer has personhood after it's dead, right? It's no longer a conscious being. So it would revert to a form of property, and it would revert to the default owner, which would be those that are the guardian of the property, which would be the parents or the foster parents or whoever is the default guardian of the children. So they are not property whilst they are alive. But what you are is a guardian of the child's will because they are an emergent adult, and it's your responsibility to protect those children.
Okay, so this would apply even if they're like, let's say they're like 30 years old and they die, because you still mix in your labor with them initially. The 30-year-old body is still
Assuming,
your parents' property.
No, usually with an adult, it has to do with their own will and
right. It
things
would
that
be
they've set
right
into
if they write their
place.
own will because they're no longer like
And
the
if not,
it would
then
be
it
just like
defaults to
Gotcha.
usually next
it would be
of
just like the
kin
house,
or,
right?
Yeah,
Sure.
and if they didn't
If
do
you
all
have
that,
no
then
will-
it usually reverts to next of kin or
Yeah,
you know,
exactly. Reverse to
and
next
up
of
the
kin,
chain.
Okay.
presuming that you don't have a will written.
That makes sense. Okay.
Is
Gotcha.
so.
No. I know my ideology's logic.
Wait, we should make a new law where all dead bodies are public property.
Let's not do that.
Oh,
In a
sorry.
more
Hold
serious
on. I got other people I want to get in. Pan, I'm not sure if you want to say anything. Fanatic, I definitely want to give you space to say stuff.
I got nothing to say, bro. This is I feel like almost an autistic conversation. Like people are just going off on some nonsense.
Ew, what does that mean?
Oh, you know exactly what the freak it
No,
means. I said
Fucking
it.
Not really.
ableist.
No.
I-
He said what is happening.
Ableists.
Okay, so hold on. Well, yeah, what? No, I want to know what are your
It
thoughts?
just- Okay, it's really simple. It's just this simple, right? Like if somebody has a dead body of like
Oh, your mic cut out again.
Yeah, again, you might cut out a Fanatic, buddy.
Bill
Fanatic,
Clinton no one can hear you.
someone, whatever. I think that it's
Your mic cut
I'm
out.
sorry. I'm sorry. If someone has a dead body, it's obviously morally decrepit to say that I'm just going to take this body for my own means, and that means that I'm allowed to use this like for whatever. That I've already said it. That's just the end of it. That's point one. So no matter what, any person doing it is a moral scumbag. There's plenty of things that people can do that are that are not illegal, right? For example, having an affair on your wife, it's not criminal. It used to be.
It is in
Should
some
be.
places.
But it's not enforced in this country anywhere legally, like in the United States.
In the military,
right?
the USMJ still
Okay,
enforces
sure,
it.
in the military. Okay, whatever. In any state,
it is
state level,
civilly
whatever.
through
My
divorce.
point being, so if that's the case, we all understand you're a moral scumbag for doing it, right?
Yes.
And I think all of these kind of things, I think it'd be morally scummy to go ahead and have sexual relations with somebody knowing that you got herpes, right? Like you got herpes delta, you sleep with some person and you transfer it to them and you never told them anything like that, right? That would be really scummy, right? But it's probably not illegal. Probably
Fraud.
should be, just like the HIV and all those kind of things.
Should be
But these
illegal.
things are not enforced and these things are not illegal. In the same sense, I feel like, yes, using these pictures for your political gains, I think it's immoral and I think it's morally decrepit. And so I would say, if you do that, I would hope that the average American would look and see, wow, they use this person's body that they didn't even know to exploit it in order for their own gain. And I think that that's scummy. I would hope people would do that. But we know how smooth-brained and short attention to everyone else is, right? People are still going to watch Aquaman 2 with Amber Heard in it. So you already know, like, people don't actually hold up moral stances like that.
Question
So
for you,
I
Fanatic.
think it's just morally ridiculous. Now, when we go to the legal thing, I do think it gets incredibly difficult to start sitting there and saying, like, okay, can we literally make it where, like, there's a certain time limit, like, well, for whatever. And I think if we were going to go down that road, as stupid as it is, I would probably say there would be a time limit or something, maybe. I don't know I don't know. I need to do some studies to find out what the average length of grieving is. I know it can vary, but I want to know what that time period is, and then maybe say after maybe like a year or two, whatever that time period is. I don't know. I'm just spitballing right now. Then maybe yes, you can then use those things in those ways. But still, I would still say if you did so against the wills of the family members, then yeah, you're a moral scumbag.
Question for you, Fanatic. So what about war reporters who are there in the middle of the battle as it's going on these days, live streaming, where they can't even edit things out? Are
So
they
in those
immoral?
cases, No, I would say in those cases, one, you don't have the explicit statement from the other person saying that they don't want this thing to happen. Two, obviously, a lot of times these bodies and things like these faces and whatever, they're not identified. We don't even know who the freak they are. Like they're unrecognizable. Like in the military, you're basically a number. Like so, all of those reasons, I think it completely dramatically changes. Hell, I think
It's
in most of those
civilians
cases,
too.
hell, in most of those cases, I would imagine that most of the people there wouldn't, most family members wouldn't even be able to know that's my son that got killed there, right? So, in I think that the everything that I just gave you argument wise doesn't even that doesn't even touch any of
No,
those
because
things.
you could still have civilians getting killed there, and they can't really do much to just censor that on the fly. And that person's
I already
parents
answered your question.
could have not wanted that. So this goes back to what I was saying before, is that it's this can just happen, right? Is everybody supposed to wait for the parents to come and give their
No.
consent?
No, we've already answered this.
I
It's
already
not
answered
about
your
giving
question, Tony.
consent,
Did
it's
you
about
not hear me?
revoking.
Well, yeah. So and also, first of all, like, so maybe there's a
No,
greater
Oh, you
because
didn't listen.
philosophical
Oh, you didn't
discussion
listen. I
about
got it. Well, I don't have any more questions for you. You
I-
didn't
we
listen.
live stream
I am-
like because like this,
Anyways,
this,
I did listen to you, but the problem is you skipped over something because you're
Nope.
saying that it's morally reprehensible, right? So
I explained exactly why and specifically what was morally reprehensible. And I explained to you that your question doesn't address the factors of mine that I said would be morally reprehensible. Here, I'll walk
But
you.
thay're
I'll walk you
not.
through it. I'll walk
But-
you through it.
but
Since you're
lots
not
of
paying
these are
attention,
not
really
doing it for
simply.
political
I'll walk you through it
gain.
really simply so that you can understand.
Nope,
So that you don't have to ask
because
me any more
lots of them
stupid
are
questions
political
because your brain
gain.
obviously wasn't listening.
Reported.
Okay, I'll say it one
You're
more
not
time really
listening
simply.
either.
It's
You're
really
just
simple.
talking over
I
me.
said
Shut the fuck up
specifically
for
in
10
the
seconds.
cases in which the
Shut the fuck up
parent
for 10 seconds.
specifically
Talking over
said
a lot.
something
Okay,
to them, or the family member
Shut the fuck
specifically
up for 10
said
seconds.
something
Shut
in
the
such
fuck up.
situations,
Shut the fuck
given
up.
the
Okay, oh,
family's
whoa, 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 whoa,
objection,
okay, we're
then
done,
it would
we're
be
done.
morally
We're
reprehensible.
done.
But in
Whoa.
this case, what you're talking
Everyone,
about, there is
everyone,
no family
hey, hey,
rejection.
hey, hey. Whoa, whoa. When I say quiet, everyone quiet down. No exceptions. Thank you. Thank you very much. Great. Wonderful. All right, Zonia, finish your point. Then we'll go back to Fanatic.
Oh, yeah.
Because these are not all used for political gain. These are just people reporting, like the same thing with the Napalm Girl. They were just reporting on what was going at the time. And so they were capturing everything and they were putting it out there. They were publishing it in magazines. They were publishing it in newspapers. And it was motivating people because of what people saw, not because of what the intent of the reporters were, of the field photographers. It was motivating people because of what they saw. So they saw these things, they saw the actions, they saw the grotesque nature of it all, and that happened to motivate them. There was no political gain in that. They weren't trying to do something specific. They're trying to show what was going on in the war. And this is something like I don't think there's anything immoral about that. I think being able to just demonstrate exactly what is going on with these situations is reporting on it to show the brutality of it and the disgusting nature of it. Whether or not you like, sure, plenty of people will use it for political motivation, and that I would say is disgusting, like what a lot of people do with abortion type stuff and other kinds of things. They will go and then weaponize those things to turn them into a political ploy. But if you're just reporting on the nature of the situation, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Even after the fact, even if you were recording it and then processing it later and then publishing it in a magazine, I don't think there's anything immoral about that.
Okay, so Zonia wasn't listening to me. Anybody else have any objections, or did what I say actually just hold up?
Let's go to Corey and Lagford. We'll find out.
Yeah. So Zonia, again, going back to sort of like the original thing I was trying to push back on, like you seem to be like your guiding principle is like just no censorship, but you agree to some forms of censorship. You agree to some limitations, and that
Yeah.
it's just not it should not be a free for all. So it
Yeah.
seems like you have a problem with excessive censorship, which is fair. I'm just trying to find out like where exactly your limits lie, like, and also what is the utility of like fresh new graphic imagery. I think we have at this point, like, is there any real utility in like live streaming war currently? I think we have enough historical footage that I don't see why we can't like recycle it. I don't know why also
What do you mean?
potentially if the technology gets there, we can just render real live images that are horrific and use that as, you know, marketing tools to hopefully, you know, sway political opinions. And you can also report on things without
Well,
horrific imagery.
reporting
Like
isn't
we
necessarily about
didn't
swaying
always
political
have
opinion.
imagery. We didn't always have cameras, and still political positions were swayed. Very often, you can be quite graphic in text. Just use a little bit of your imagination. And so when it comes to
No,
verdict
you can't
imagery,
be hold on, you cannot be in graphic as text as you can as with
No.
gory images.
You-
This is so
AOL
obviously
chat
false.
rooms would beg to differ.
I'm just saying you can invoke
Obviously you
certain imagery.
can,
I'm not
right?
saying
But
it's
people,
equivalent.
it's
Uh,
obviously
if
easier.
I-
Like
if-
this is
if I
missing the
may,
point of the question.
well, yeah, we can get into the larger conversation of whether actually horrific or graphic imagery sways political positions. But either way, like you can report on things without like you can use your words also, and you don't always have to use horrific imagery of children or minors specifically to get a point across. Like just as your example of the Vietnam individual, that graphic imagery, I'm sure there's other alternatives that you can use that doesn't actually require that. You can have the same, you can evoke the same feelings and sway the same opinions.
Not really.
No.
But you can okay, so I was curious about what you were saying about recycling imagery. That doesn't make a lot of sense for like a current ongoing war. Like I wouldn't say that people shouldn't have been reporting on the ground in Ukraine. I think that
I'm not
was
saying no
important to
reporting.
do.
I'm just saying like in terms of like do we have to live stream everything? Do we have to like photograph? Like you can still document things, you know, like it doesn't always have to be like actual
Well,
live video footage of everything.
it's
Like
going to be a
we
mix of things, but these days it's a lot easier to do things live streamed, right? Because everybody's got a phone that's got connection somewhere, etc.
You can write an article, right, that describes Dresden and describe the fact that the Allies bombed Germany after they had already surrendered in World War II. You could even pair that with other images of other areas from historical context from World War II. But to say that you can get the same political effect, right, without the actual images of Dresden, right, like that it doesn't like is to deny the principles of rhetoric, right? Like it's to deny that pathos is effective in its own regard, and it needs to be paired with logos and ethos, right?
Now it's
And if you're
getting
constantly
autistic.
showing right, but like now yeah, and if you're a news publication that's constantly showing dead babies for no fucking reason, then you lose your ethos. You lose your ability to stand on principle as an institution that has respect and only reports things and images when it's necessary. If you don't report the images at all, then you lose the pathos portion of your argument to be able to invoke the same emotions that you claim to be able to do solely through text or with other historical photos. Right. So, I mean, like these are all principal elements of good argumentation. And if you have a cause, you have values that you want presented to other people in your reporting, then you need all of the principal elements in order to be able to make a good argument.
So
Okay. So finally, Lactoid.
Yeah, real quick, Zanya. I've been thinking about it more because the example that you're using is like the napalm girl, right? And I almost think that like this is kind of a bad example because I don't think even you would agree that we shouldn't be allowed to like photograph like naked children and like without even censoring their face and like publish them because
Yeah, I would have said that we should have censored their face, but back then we didn't do those kinds of things, right?
yeah, I mean that's a little bit fucked, and I'm not even sure if I'm on board with it. Even if we did censor their face, like surely that would have been better than what we did because that person's still alive, and maybe that person like didn't want to be photographed like as a child. Another thing that brings to mind is like
probably
the Nirvana baby is suing the record label right now because the Nevermind album where the baby's in the water. That baby grew up and was like, there's naked baby pictures of me now, like all over the internet. That's kind of fucked.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, actually, the more I think about it, like maybe that napalm girl picture shouldn't have been allowed because you're depicting like a living naked child without her consent, like, and publishing it all over the world. It's a little bit fucked.
Yeah, and that's why I think there does need to be at least some form of censorship, like censoring their identity.
Right. So you
and
agree to some
things.
form of censorship, like.
I never said I didn't, right?
No,
How many times? Wait, hang on. Let's go back and count.
Categories
I said
don't
that
undo
maybe
the
5
logic
times now.
of principle.
So please extend me a little bit of charitability. Anyways, like I'm not totally 100% ANCAP libertarian, right? I'm more, like there are certain things that we do need to regulate and certain things we do need to censor. But yeah, I don't want to just say that let's nix all these things because it's going to offend people. Because when we get into that when we start getting into that direction, that's when we just start extending out the boundary of what offends people more and more. And we get to the point where we're eliminating all kinds of things, including really important, pertinent information.
So
which we have, which is what we have
if we have
today,
a crime scene, right?
No,
So if we have a
I just
crime,
have a real
if we have a
quick
crime scene like
question
the one in Texas.
So we got
right?
to go to Wick. We got to wait so
Yeah,
forever, and then Doobie.
to Lactoid's point here, because I'd push against you a little bit. Like, is the only qualm you have is the nakedness of the person? If they were being depicted in some sort of violent, horrific act was happening, but they were fully clothed, would that be okay in that case? Or would you still have objections to showing Napalm Girl but fully clothed, right?
I
Like,
may still have objections. I think I think when they're naked, it's like the most I think easy example of like maybe we shouldn't be letting, because I mean because let's imagine what this will lead to, right? Well, if we're going to say it's okay to like take pictures of naked children and post them on the internet, well, that leads to like
yeah,
some
that's
negative
reductive.
ramifications.
That's
It- it-
severely reductive.
So you're saying it's reductive, but like even in non-violent situations, this has happened. The Nirvana baby. Now there's a lawsuit happening about that right now because the kid, because he didn't want to have
that's not
posted over
no. There
over the
is
internet or posted on an album cover.
Like there is obviously specific instances where it's okay and many instances where it's not. And when it comes to album covers, I think that you have a much stronger argument to make. But when it comes to things like reporting on war and reporting on horrible, brutal acts of violence, I think that again, absence or sans the objection of family members or the individual themselves, that depicting these things is it has a moral use. It has a utility and a morality to it, because even if we can get to a point where we can depict realistic images by CGI or whatever Corey was referring to here, right? I think that there is a lot to be gained in simply showing it as it is, unedited. Here it is. This is the raw, uncut. This is what happened. Now, obviously, again, I make exceptions when it comes to the family members or someone having an objection to this and wanting it out. But barring that, in an active war scene or war zone or something like that, where their consent cannot be rescinded like that, I think there's a value to this, because as Pan and all Doobie and all those who have objected to this have mentioned, this is effective. And to failing to do so, failing to use this tool that we have at our disposal, even though yes, it's a tool that could be used for ill purposes, failing to do so, I think is silly and ineffective. It has done so much good in the world. To give it up entirely would be silly.
Okay, so I'll just quickly respond. I think my preliminary, I haven't fully thought of this opinion, but my preliminary opinion is I see where you're coming from, but at the same time, on principle, like I have to object to, I think that I'm not okay with naked photos of children, even in situations like this being spread. I think that at the very least, you should censor what you can. You can show the background, you can show the situation they're in, and then perhaps censor the things that are happening to them, or censor their body, or maybe even particular body parts. I haven't fully thought out like what should be allowed and what shouldn't, but just like baseline, we should allow the raw, uncut footage of naked children, like in a war zone or even not in a war zone. I'm not okay with that. Shouldn't happen.
It's
Doobie.
Yeah. So again, we're like framing this around like the war zone thing and yada yada. But I think if you wanted to have this be the standard, we need to be real about where it's going to be applied. Right. So I'm wondering like what the limit here is. Right. So if we have amateur video of somebody that was raped to death, right? They were raped and then murdered, right? And it's all on video. Do you think, and a news organization had this sent to them, right? And do you think it'd be reasonable for them to plaster that all over the website or on TV? A video of a woman being like,
yeah, that would be unreasonable. Though
Why? For sure.
sometimes acts of crimes are published, usually just blurred out, right? So you'll see like somebody went and hit somebody over the head with something or shot somebody. You'll sometimes see those.
Wait, but you're saying that you want the images, you want images of like shot up children at the school. Well, I'm not talking to you, Scott. You're saying that Zona, you said that the Uvalde shooting, or whatever. You're saying, oh, we shouldn't have these things be censored because people are offended and yada yada.
Mhm.
So to me, that sounds like you're saying that if a journalist had got in, journalist quote unquote, somebody with a camera had got in to the school right afterwards, before the police were able to seal off the area, and they took pictures or video of all these dead children, and then plastered it all over the internet, or sold that to somebody, they'd be okay for that to be posted like everywhere.
They shouldn't do that, but yeah, I don't see.
Okay, then what's
why
the
we
what's the
would restrict
difference?
that.
Like someone were to capture a
there's-
rape on video and then send
because-
that and have that plastered around.
Because you're making the distinction that you're making, like so many of you guys are doing this, you're equating legality with morality, right? And the problem with doing those two
We're just
things-
not interested in the legal question. That's we acknowledge it exists. We're just not interested.
Hold on,
Okay,
wait, hold on. I am interested in it. I think
you
to be
are.
clear,
The entire
I
basis
think
of
it
the
should be illegal.
topic
I
is
think it should be
whether or not
illegal.
we should do
I
this.
think what you guys are
It's-
advocating for should be illegal.
You keep.
I'm
people
asking you to
keep
tell me why
saying,
it
like,
should be
oh, it's
illegal.
about the morals, right? But then, and that's okay. But the moment that you say you shouldn't be allowed to do this is the moment that you inject the legal question.
Exactly.
Right. So what we're talking about is there's a difference in context between the Uvalde shooting, right, and a random specific rape. But maybe there isn't. That is up to the publisher to decide with that information what they will do with that photography, what they will do with that. It is also up to you as the reader and you as the internet user and you as the parent to police the content that you choose to consume. And if a publication is known for doing shit that you don't agree with, then you should stop supporting them. You should stop reading them. You should block them on Twitter. And when people share shit from them, you can be like, oh, I don't trust this publication. They fucking suck. They're scummy bastards, right? And that's your personal choice and your choice as a parent, right? To make sure that harm isn't done to your child by cultivating the content that they view. But when you say
Again, I'm not talking
legality,
about. I'm not just talking about children. I think there's a public interest here, right? I don't want videos of people being raped and then murdered put all over the fucking internet. I don't think that's an indication of a healthy society, right? When we're
you're
allowing,
right. You're right.
yeah.
That
So I
isn't an indication of a healthy society, but
think
you
it should
can't
be illegal. I
can't
absolutely can force people not to put this.
My
Yeah,
problem
absolutely
here-
we can, and that's
my-
what
No,
the
you
law is for.
cannot.
My
You
problem
we can.
here
You
is that
cannot
we've got
force morality. It's
Hold on.
impossible.
That is
to
what
legally
the law is
enforce
for.
morality. No,
Right?
it is
So,
not.
yes,
What
yes, it is.
No, you can have moral ideas and you can force human behavior to change through coercion and violence, but you cannot force people to be moral individuals.
Yeah,
in
okay.
and
I
of
don't need
themselves.
them to adopt my morality. I just need them to do what the fuck I say, right? So if I say, hey, I know that there's a video floating around of a woman being raped and murdered. You don't get to plaster that all over Facebook or all over TV because you think it's going to drive some kind of movement, right? That's fucked up, right? And because what you guys are saying, even if her family came forward and said, hey, please, this is my daughter. Don't post this video of her being raped and murdered all over your fucking television station. You say, hey, fuck you, family. Too bad. I think that is extremely disgusting, and I would absolutely make it illegal. Yeah, and fuck, I don't
Right.
give a fuck if you don't.
And you
want
want to give
care about my moral
the
code. I
power.
wanna
You
say,
want to give
fuck
the
you.
power
I don't
to the
care.
state. You want to
Yes.
give the power to the
Then-
state to determine what can and can't be shown in terms of rhetoric and publication and
Absolutely.
news. There's a reason we have the First Amendment and the freedom of the press, because giving that power,
Well, it's not unlimited.
giving too much of that power to the state and allowing them to choose what they can and can't publish as publications is the very type of thing that can allow the state to begin to censor news publications on important political issues and their ability to effectively communicate those things. That is why we make the distinction here, because it's whenever you make a law, it doesn't work out hunky dory.
Yeah, I think, but the issue here is, I think you're giving too much power to the individual here, to the people that have a profit incentive. That if
I'm an
you can
anarchist,
say,
so
hey, just
I'll
vote with your
always give
wallet.
the ultimate
Vote
power
with
to
your
the
wallet.
individual.
Vote with your wallet. Go
Unlike
somewhere
you
else.
that wants to
But
steal
if they
and force
but if
people.
they get videos of a woman being raped and murdered and plastered that all over the fucking internet, they're gonna make money. There are plenty of
It's
sick people out there
scummy.
that will
It's
want to see it.
scummy.
So I think it's okay to say, hey, no, fuck you. You don't get to do that. I don't care about your freedom in this respect. You don't have the freedom to do this thing.
Doobie, have you traveled internationally?
Yes.
So I'm sure you've seen the media in other countries and how much more graphic it is in other countries than ours.
Yeah, in Mexico they show like photos and videos of people that have been like chopped up and shit all over the street all the time, and it's still fucking happening. I don't think it does anything but
And-
sensationalize the story and draw eyes to
And-
TV for these
and
news
not
stations.
just like not just Mexico, but even like European television is much more graphic, and in many other countries.
Wait, hold on.
And they don't even have First Amendment. They don't even have the First Amendment. Most of those countries don't even have freedom of speech.
Okay, but in Mexico, where they do this all the fucking time, these things are still happening, right? So I don't think there's any benefit to society by allowing them to do this.
That's a dumb argument, and you know it. Like the idea that Mexico,
The argument the zone has been putting forward.
analysis.
The argument the zone has been putting forward is, hey, if we allow them to do this shit, people are going to change. It's going to spur some kind of reaction.
Is that it informs people and that sometimes motivates them.
Why do people need to be
likely
informed what the
design
inside of a
drill
6-year-old's
down.
head looks like? So if
You
a kid's
can't
been shot up
drill
and their
down.
face
No,
has been
you can't
exploded,
drill-
why do they need to be informed as to what that looks like?
You can't drill down
They
all of
don't.
society's
Well,
consequences.
then why are you saying that they should?
You
that they
can't
should
drill
be?
down all of society's
I'm-
consequences to one analysis that says, well, in Mexico they show this and they still have these problems, therefore it does nothing. That's a stupid argument because like half the fucking reason for all the problems in Mexico is the American war on drugs.
Yeah,
Like,
and
it's
I
got
think,
nothing to do with the
boiling
money is
down
reporting.
the reason the
So
U.S.
the
left
reason-
Vietnam
Asking a
to,
legitimate
to
my
a photograph of
argument-
a little girl on fire is also fucking stupid, right? Which is what you get,
My-
or the civil rights movement to Emmett Till in that photograph. That's also fucking stupid.
My argument was that
That's not a stupid argument.
people seeing more reality in the news, more reality reported in the news, of a more graphic nature, not only does it inform them, but oftentimes it inspires them. It doesn't necessarily actually solve the problems.
You'd actually have to
but
Doobie's
it
asking a
does
legitimate question
motivate
of
people.
like, does
So-
graphic imagery actually motivate people to
we
change?
can
Like,
point to historical examples, and we have throughout this how war photography has changed the nature of how nations view war and
do
the
we
public
need do we need
view war.
sometimes.
Like, how much
war
data do you want?
photography? Like, no, do we need a
Yes,
constant
What kind
influx?
of recent
Hold on,
study? How
hold
recent
on,
would you
Vic, are you
accept?
speaking specifically
So
about
the
war
problem
photography,
is,
or are you
once you
talking about what I'm talking about, which is crime scenes and videos of women being raped and murdered being plastered all over the fucking place?
Right. And I would ask the question, like, do you require graphic imagery of rape scenes to be against rape? Like,
Of
that's the
course not.
convincing
No.
well,
Of
exactly.
course
So
not.
maybe there's something else
But
we can rely on.
again,
It
but if
does
you have a
increase-
very
it
powerful
increases political
tool
motivation to address something,
that
right?
can motivate someone in a way that
there's
your
sparse
words
evidence to
cannot,
back
why
that up,
would
if
you
any.
not?
I teach someone that they're actually turned on by the sound a woman makes when she's being raped, and might encourage someone to go to rape somebody. Yeah, it can encourage people to do that. I'd encourage them to donate to some random ass rape organization. Yeah, sure, okay, but I think you can do that, and you can get the emotional appeal out without showing a woman being raped and murdered on video. Or in the case of the school shooting, showing people what the inside of a 6-year-old's head looks like when it's been shot.
Right. Do we need graphic images of children or minors to be against mass shootings or the
It's
you know,
not
the
about
horrific-
it's not about
Leave out
what
the
you
word need. Leave
Yeah,
out the word
what-
need.
When you keep saying need, what you're
Yeah.
saying is
You keep getting
I
very
believe
essentialist.
I believe it's good enough without these, and therefore you're doing a cost benefit analysis of how much censorship you want. But the problem is there's several problems with this. Number one is nobody has a crystal ball to be able to determine the future and what it will look like with and without these programs. And I mean that both from the emotional argument, like we don't know when 15 minutes of fame happened. Like there like how many, like we don't know when that pivotal moment like inspires a nation to change anything. Like, I mean, I fucking hate Black Lives Matter as an organization, but like, do you really think we would have had what we had if we never had any photographic evidence of George Floyd? If we did not have the videotapes of George Floyd, if we did not have people showing over and over and over again this officer, Chauvin, and his knee on the back or the back of the neck, however, whatever fucking interpretation you want to take, right, on him, and we didn't, like, do you think just the story itself would be enough? Because I don't think that's true. And the reason I say I don't think that's true is because this shit happens all the time. It was that video that made people go, what in the fuck is happening with American policing? And
I
inspired
totally
people
agree
to go
with
out.
that. In the same way that, like, when we talk about what's actually happening in the prison system and like how absolutely inhumane it is and just how destructive it is to the Black community and all those kind of things, I think a lot of times the reason why people aren't really motivated to change anything or why they don't really particularly care is because we can talk about prison rape all the time, but people have never seen it. So maybe we just need cameras more inside of in prisons so we can start detailing this prison rape and displaying it to everybody else so people can actually get a soft heart about it. You think, Fabian?
Maybe for some publications, maybe.
So
Maybe
a
if we had
lot of-
videotape
a
of
lot
Jeffrey
of-
Thank you.
Epstein,
I
we'd know
appreciate
what was
that.
going
a
on.
lot of empathizing comes from like because a lot of people don't have to experience these things directly, so a lot of the empathizing comes with seeing something that they can identify with, right? And this
That's sort of a bug in human empathy.
it is, and
like,
part of it has to do with the more that we distract ourselves with various things and quick fixes and media and shit like that, the more it is that we become it's easier for us to just disconnect and distract ourselves and focus on something that's giving us our our quick fix for the time being. But when you can get these images out there that people can relate to, they can empathize then and be motivated. And I get
They
what you're
do
saying,
relate to
Doobie.
it, right?
Yeah,
Like not only
and
can they do it, but they actually relate to it. This is shown through his history that
Yeah.
when they are able to humanize and identify better with the victims of these crimes. And pictures help that because there's a lot of people who are visual in nature that some people aren't, right? Like not everyone is. This isn't about everyone here. It's not about 100% success rate. And that's why even with war photography, even with all these things, there are some people who still glorify war, who still think it's okay to do these terrible things, or who are desensitized to it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But what we want to do is the things that work on the general populace overall and mitigate harm that's done by war. Because again, before war photography existed, people still
But do
died from war.
you hold
There's
this
still
do you hold
horrific
this position
stories
separate
going
from the
out.
war thing? Because you keep going back to the war thing, right? But yeah, I
But
think
it's a
you want
good
like war
example.
photos.
It's a really good
like
example.
change the world. But again, what you guys are
Well,
talking
there's
about
also
be applied in all cases across the board. So I'm wondering, like,
The
so if it's
Again, you
so if
act
it's
like
so if
well,
it's so if it's
you
in
take a
the
general
United
principle and
States,
try to
in
apply
your
it to every
state,
single thing.
a
It's
video of a
always
woman
hard
being
to
raped
again.
and murdered, do you still hold that position?
Yes.
Well, I'm asking Wick.
So okay, so in my opinion, right? I don't know. I don't know if that
Oh, okay.
specific
So it's
instance,
different.
right? I just don't have enough data on it to show you in that specific instance. But I do know in the case of war. That's why I keep referring to it, is because it's one of the things where I have the most data about. And so I'm the most sure on of my position, where I can point to this and say, hey, look, we've seen how this changed from before war photography. Same, all these horrific things happened. People lost family members. There's horrific stories, but the government and other state actors were able to glorify it in a way that people just kind of went along with in a lot of ways. But after war photography, that's when public perception shifted drastically against war. It's not the only factor, but it's one of the major factors.
Doobie, I got a question for you. What about in situations where, like, the video or I guess photographs as well, but I guess I have an example in my head of like a video, which actually it's actually like important to see the video in order to develop like an accurate opinion as to like what happened. Like even though it might display something like horribly graphic. Like what about
Like what?
So the example that immediately comes to my head is like Kyle Rittenhouse. When that shooting happened, the immediate headlines were, massacre, like this guy killed like a bunch of people. And the videos came out, and like I watched every second of every video, and the videos told an entirely different story. And I don't think if those videos were out there to the public to see, even though it showed people being shot and killed, I think people would have a dramatically different understanding of what happened, and they would have demonized him a lot more.
I think that's a really good point, but I wonder if so in that situation specifically, so I'm sure Kyle wanted the video out. Sure, the victims, their family members wanted the video out because they felt like they were in the right.
Well, some of them didn't, right?
Wait, who didn't?
I maybe I'm totally wrong about that, but that's what I heard. At least one. I thought the skateboard guy. Am I wrong on that?
I've never heard of him. His family not wanting the video out.
Was an effort to prevent the videos from coming out, because remember there was one that was incomplete that was released initially, and then we had to wait for the other videos to come out.
I could be totally wrong, but that's
I think with something like that there might be like a public interest that's strong enough that censored versions of the video, because most videos that I saw on the news, like just that, not on like YouTube or like online media organizations, were censored versions, right? Where they cut off like right before the person was shot or whatever, and they talked about what happened rather than like showing it. And maybe they provided a link to it on the website, the actual video.
What if
But
Rittenhouse's parents disagreed?
disagreed
What if
with?
none
Well,
of
he's
the
still
audio
alive.
was
Well, the
released?
victim's parents.
No. Rittenhouse's parents too.
Yeah,
Well,
I
he
think,
was-
like I said,
was-
I think there might be a strong enough public interest there that it might make sense to show the video.
Right.
Just
the problem
as
is
in the
you want to give the
You want a
state
law.
the power and the
Yeah.
authority to determine what is in the public's interest as opposed to the
Yeah.
press. That is the issue here.
Well,
Yeah, that's
I
my
think that
conflict.
hold on,
with
but I
you-
think
you
that
as well, David.
the state, right, for me takes precedence of if the press decided, quote unquote, the press, which is these days is anybody with like a camera, decided that it'd be in the public interest to share around pictures of children being raped and murdered or molested to demonstrate what a horrible person Jeffrey Epstein was, right? They stumbled onto a stockpile of these videos and sort of sharing them around and posting them around. I'd say, hey, no, you don't get to show that. Right.
Yeah,
even
but the
if there was
problem
a
is
public interest there. Right. So
you're willing to go to one extreme to make your argument sound good, and you're doing so in a really disingenuous way because you're not going to the other extreme, which is the other extreme is that the state did something wrong, like in Gitmo, Guantanamo Bay, right? And the state was torturing people, and they were doing so. And what you're saying is, well, the state should be allowed to say what videos are too graphic or wrong to show to people. And so in that extreme, the state now has the authority to cover up its own crimes.
Yeah.
So if
A
you're
good
going to go to one
example
extreme, you
during
got to
the
go to the
Iraq
other.
War. During the Iraq
You-
War, the Abu Ghraib prison.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I mean, you don't have
Stuff
to
that came
own
out
that
about
because we obviously recognize that there's specific interest for the state making those sorts of determinations for specifically classified information, sometimes to protect its own interest, and obviously it's with the assumption that the state has its interest with the people. Obviously, you know how based I think that the state is specifically if we start considering things like its absolute pivotal role in ensuring the end of some of the harsh Jim Crow roles. We got to remember that the National Guard was sent into some of these Republican states who, despite the passing of the Brown versus Board of Education and the Supreme Court decision, they still were like, yeah, we're still not going to let them niggas go to our schools. And it took the state to come in there and say, hey, nah, we're going to force you guys to let these niggas in your school. And we saw how like freaking violent and all that that nonsense was. We see how very heavy-handed the state has been in ensuring certain civil rights things and enforcing those things. The state is the one who is suing all these banks for the reverse redlining. So we see. Now, obviously, the state is a tool, and it can be used for really terrible things as well. But obviously, you got to recognize, as niggas, we got to have some respect for that state. So there's plenty of time where the state, when it comes to the state protecting its own interest, sure, there probably needs to be some sort of oversights or some sort of checks and balances. But I don't think you have to go to the other extreme. I think that you made a good point, and he just, he's so whatever. I won't go into that.
Well, but then if you hand censorship control over to the state, though, you have a lot of other problems that are far too easy for the state to take advantage. For instance, like the state protecting cops from their abuse of citizens,
Also-
right?
Yeah. Also,
But Sony, you agree that the
just real
state
quick.
should have censorship control, though. Like,
No.
I'm sure you're okay with laws restricting like child pornography, but that's censorship.
Well,
very,
yeah,
very
yeah.
light
Yeah.
touches. But
Yeah.
almost every exception to the First Amendment is specifically targeted against, like
That's
every time they tried to
illegality,
carve
by
out
the
an
way.
exception against the First Amendment in the American system, it's no coincidence that the exceptions have been targeting minorities, religious minorities, things like that. Every single time, almost without exception.
And-
There's a couple,
and
but
this-
but
and
that's who
this-
it is. That's why free speech is so important to protect, and that's why, again, even though I think that there are limits, I'm not an absolutist by any means. There are limits to it. Those limits should be as minimal as possible, because again, in almost every case, when the government or the state targets someone's speech, minorities get hit the hardest. They just do.
And the child pornography example, I think it's a
Wick, be
bad
careful, you're being
example
racist.
because of the problem. The issue there is that creating and trading in child pornography is illegal, right? So
Wait, but why
it's-
should it be illegal if you don't want the state coming in to censor what people are allowed to publicize?
because of the harm it does to children. So
What if the child's dead?
The harm it does to children. This has been my argument this whole time.
Yeah,
Well, this
what
is
if
what I
what
said
if the
earlier,
child's
we
dead
can
and you
censor
found
some things
for
for
child
children.
porn of a dead child? Would you be able to spread that around because there's no victim there?
no, because that would encourage potentially doing shit like that in order to like
Why?
rob corpses or something.
Wait, why wouldn't allowing people to have post up videos of women being raped to death maybe encourage some rape to happen?
That might actually encourage some rape to happen. It's
So you
possible.
think
there's
that should be
some
illegal?
people
Like
go off on it.
Zonia, I agree with
Yeah.
you like
It's actually the
99%,
opposite.
but I think on these edge cases, you kind of have to bite the bullet and you have to say that, yeah, you know, there probably are some things that we censor, and it's okay that we censor even if there's no direct harm that's like going to
Well,
result
I
from
said that
right?
earlier, right? Like censoring the identity of
Okay,
children and stuff
yeah.
like that. I fully agree with certain levels of censorship.
Yeah, like I mean,
and
I
that
just don't think we should
censorship,
buy into Doobie's idea that you either have to, you know, say, oh, we fully support censorship like he does, or like, oh,
No,
then
that
you have
wasn't
to allow
Doobie's point. That
child
was
porn.
I don't
that
fully
was
support
that was
censorship.
that was
Sorry.
Scott.
So
Hold on, I don't support all
I
censorship
think
of all
that-
things.
I think
I
I
know
don't
that-
think anyone here is like completely exact on this, right? I think that we just want
I am.
varying scales of besides.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't think
I-
anyone serious here is at an absolute.
Okay, well, I think Zonia's
so I'm
here.
not
I'd like to
serious?
just finish answering the question. So, like, so you think that even if you were to blur the face of the child being molested, right? So you didn't show their face, you just show the child's vagina while she's being molested.
I
right?
think you
If
should censor that
If
too.
this were why, but if she's dead, right? What's the issue?
A dead child.
That changes
That
things,
one,
apparently.
and that one, yeah, I think you should because I care about the protecting of the child, right? So
Yeah, but the
that's
child's
sort
dead.
of my focus.
Yeah, so we should be able to have child porn, and send it around, and share it, and so long as the children are dead.
No, because that would effectively be encouraging a culture of engaging in finding a way, like finding ways to engage in child
So
pornography by
Doobie,
finding
would you
loopholes,
beat
right?
off to dead children if the government didn't stop you?
No,
I think
absolutely.
that's aside from the point
What
here.
kind of
So
question
you
is
would,
that?
so you wouldn't beat off to dead children. You wouldn't
That's
beat
not what
off to child pornography if the state didn't stop you.
not what he's saying. He's
Yeah,
saying
no, I
it's,
wouldn't.
he's
No,
saying
I'm
it's-
asking a
what
question.
Doobie is saying is that there are people out there who would do that, and so
Yeah.
this is effectively paving the way for them to be able to find an avenue.
Yeah,
to
and
their
if you're saying that there's like an
interest.
incentive that could be created, right, by allowing people to share this kind of stuff, I don't understand why
I-
I wouldn't think that same incentive would be created
I
by allowing
think
violent imagery in general. But like in the case that I pointed to earlier, a video of a woman being raped
Well,
and then murdered.
I think that everything has some form of incentive to it, right? Like
Sure.
we're emotional creatures that take in things through our senses, and some of those things motivate us based on our our better nature, and some of them motivate us based on our bad nature, right? So there are some
Yeah,
people.
so we shouldn't allow people to have post up
But-
videos of a woman being raped and murdered.
But then if you use that logic, you would have to lock down everything and not show anything at all, because
That's not
everything
true.
could encourage people to like showing just a child on
Wait,
television
hold on,
could encourage
Sonia, but you
child
disagreed
sex
with me though.
offenders to be
You just told
inspired
me
by that.
you just told me that if we allow child porn of dead children to exist, well, it might encourage or incentivize further child porn of dead children. So we shouldn't allow that.
Yeah,
but now you're
that's
saying,
the
hey, if that's our argument, then we would need to just shut down everything because everything could have a negative influence. So are you now saying that you support videos of like dead children
Well,
being
I'm not an
molested?
absolutist in any of these things. I think that we do need to have some limits, as mentioned before. But
No limits.
yes, Scott's the no limits guy. So maybe direct the question at him. But I do think there do need to be some
Don't
limits.
direct anything at him. He doesn't have a brain.
But I don't want to give the state the ability to just say, what's decent for people?
But you,
That's not
but you
decent for
agree
people
though.
because it works against my better interests, right?
Like,
Like I don't
then
want
how do you
that.
justify banning like child porn of dead children if that's your like standard?
Well, because we've already banned child porn, right?
Well, no,
it's something that we agree is
Wait, is that
wrong.
it? It's just
No,
illegal right
it's
now, so
it's
that's-
because it's so far outside our moral standards of what
Yeah.
is and isn't okay. It's just so far removed that it's not even
And the
comparable
video-
to the
Wait, hold
average
on.
things that are considered indecent.
Hold on, posting
right?
videos around of a woman being raped and murdered isn't so far out of our standard as to like what's okay.
I'm pretty sure that's illegal.
Zonia says she'd be okay with
there's
that being
the
shared
difference
around.
between morals and law. We have to be, very careful
Yeah,
about
please
that.
Right,
Yeah,
but we're
Make
talking
that
about
distinction.
law here. Obviously,
If
no one
we're-
here is saying it's good to share videos of murder.
Well, I mean, he's got a point there because we have laws
I don't think
against
so.
producing child pornography, right? So there at some point you can move that, you can slide that along, and you can hit something like, okay, do we limit? Like, I would never want to promote something that is what would you call it? Like a direct incentive. So like creating pornography is a direct incentive. There's an intent there, there's a nature to it, and it is designed to be exploited, right? And then there is reporting on a crime that happened.
Yeah, so
So-
you're reporting on the crime that happened by posting up the videos of this child being molested.
Yeah, I mean, and also consequentially, that can have the same effect. Like, we see copycat shooters all the time. It's not completely unreasonable, like the idea that, reporting on a crime could cause more crime.
Doobie,
Well,
what do you?
But we
there's
should still
also-
report on the crime,
we
right?
should-
Like you wouldn't
well-
say we shouldn't report at all, correct?
Yeah, because there's going to be copycats even if you don't show the video.
Yeah, even with just text.
Yeah, so you
Yeah,
can report on somebody being molested, a kid being molested and then murdered without showing the video of them being molested and murdered. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you can definitely do that. I don't think it's
Yeah, and it should
like,
be made the
I-
law that you
I
can't
think-
do that.
no.
It shouldn't be illegal for
Well,
news organizations
We have
to
to be
show
very
images
so,
or
okay.
videos of
All right,
children being raped
If
and
we're going to
murdered.
go back to law, we have to be very explicit with how it is that we define things in law. If we create things that are too open-ended, inevitably they will be abused by the state for its own interests.
I don't
So
think
I'd like to
that's
bring up
too
an
open-ended.
example. Have any of you here heard of Yuri Dmitriev? It's a Russian Anybody?
It sounds very familiar, but I'm going to
Yeah,
say
so
no.
he's a Russian historian and archaeologist that was doing really good work in documenting the mass graves of the USSR. And what
Oh,
they
did he write the archipelago?
No, that's
the
no.
different guy.
The Gulag Archipelago is Alexander Solzhenitsyn. No, so what he did is he would go out and do archaeological digs, and he also had a foster child. And when he got the foster child, she was severely abused and malnourished. And so what he did is, knowing that he was going against the state, he made sure that he took photographic evidence of
Every
his
day or
daughter
something.
every day, looking at the changes in her body so that he could show that he was treating the child well. And what the Russian government did is they utilized those things to make sure that they put him in prison. So even when we go to the extreme limits of when we're talking about child pornography, once you start giving the state the power to do this, they can use it as a means of going after their political enemies so that they can't document cases of mass graves and the horrible crimes that the communist regime created. So again, this is why it is not something that I do not have a limiting principle here. Like, even in the cases of child pornography, what we should be doing is we should be disassociating with these people. The people that were involved in the making of the pornography belong they need to have their parental rights revoked, and they need to pay restitution, and they should be banished from fucking society, just like the people that are doing this. And we should make people
Banished
aware
how?
of it.
Banished how?
Like
prison?
forcibly removed. No, forcibly removed from the property. I don't give a
So,
fuck
like,
where they go, so long as they don't exist in the United States.
So like just what would we do? We give them a
Wherever
boat
our
and ship 'em
community
off?
is.
Do
Put
we
'em
give
on
them a boat and ship them off?
I mean, if the boat's got enough fuel and food to get whatever fucking island they want to go to, if that's what they want to do, fucking do it. I don't care. Forcibly remove them from the property.
How do you?
Of course,
remove
we
them
currently
Hold
live in
on,
a state. We currently live in a
they
state
take their
system
children
with a
with them?
prison system, right?
Wait,
No,
hold
of
on. So
course
if you had
not.
like
No,
child
They've
molesters,
neglected their children.
No, he said they lose their parental rights.
So currently we
They lose
have
their guardianship rights.
currently we have laws on the books that prevent the trade and production, the production of and trade in child pornography, right? So
Yeah.
we
On
should
moral grounds.
on moral grounds, yeah.
That's what the law specifically states.
Yeah.
Most of the time, these chapters are under like headings that are laws against morality, like laws, crimes against morality, and like these laws will be underneath these. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm fine with keeping those. I get what Scott is saying about it can be used against people who are well intentioned, especially to silence them for like a political agenda. But I am totally fine with keeping those on the books. And I think that as a reporter, you can make a judgment call and you can not show certain things. And that's probably a good thing. But I think it gets into a real problem area when you've got a state saying, you as a reporter are not allowed to report on these certain things. And
No,
even
so-
though you'll say that they can write something up, that doesn't mean shit in many cases, right? As Scott proved earlier. So you sometimes you need to allow the reporters to have their autonomy to choose what to show.
I feel like my problem with Scott's argument, I agree with it that the government will, fabricate evidence sometimes to get, political dissidents in trouble. But what I don't understand is, like, let's say child porn was illegal in Soviet Russia, right? They would just frame him for something else, right? Like if the state wants to get you and they control the
Right,
justice
that's why I'm
system,
an
they're going to be
anarchist.
right. I get that, but like, if you're, I get that's why you're an anarchist, right? But like, you can't blame it on like the prohibition of child porn. You have to blame it pretty
I'm not
much
blaming it on
solely
the
on
prohibition of child porn. What I'm saying is I don't have these like limiting principles where I then go like, oh, okay, well then we need big daddy government at this extreme. What I'm saying is you don't need big daddy government ever. You just don't need it. It's a myth that we have that we need this shit to survive. We'd be far better off on our own in anarchism.
There's plenty of anarchist communes that exist right now in the world, or did they need big daddy government to protect them from the other governments? I don't know.
I'm very
Research
supportive.
Tehran, Mexico right now.
I'm very
One
supportive.
in
Big Daddy
the
government was fucking them over, and then after in the past 11 years, they've planted 3,000 hectares of forest, tripled their fucking income, completely revolutionized their economy so that it's better for the environment. They've had violent crime go from happening all of the time to they haven't had a single instance of a murder. Yeah, they're doing a lot better
The
without
question
Big
is,
Daddy
are they
government.
reporting on the crime?
They use an entirely different criminal justice system.
Yeah.
What they do is
Exactly,
they take
nothing's
people.
a crime. When
so
nothing's a
it's-
crime, you
it's
can't report
different.
on anything.
So
No, it's not. It's not
It is
that.
not an apples to apples comparison, right? So
Yeah, it's
that's
just
the
wild
problem.
magic and
No, well,
Capistan, as they say.
I'm
It's not
actually
wild magic and Capistan. It's an
It is.
indigenismo, anarcho-environmentalist, anarcho-mutualist comedy.
I am fairly supportive of anarchism, but at the same time, I have to acknowledge that I am here in the U.S. in a state that
I'm just
where
calling out. I'm calling out the mythologies where
these-
people's brains go, "Oh no, we do
yeah,
need government
but,
for this."
but we have to.
No, you don't.
But we have to argue these things based on the system that we're in, or we have to move in the direction of some form of vanguardism to upend that system, and then argue for how we're going to do things once we've upended the system.
You don't need the vanguard to
Okay.
fucking
Okay. All right.
to
So
fucking for anarchism.
we don't need to be.
But we're currently in this system here.
and we're already over time. So thank you all for coming through. This has been super interesting. Like especially the second topic. I think the battle lines were drawn along interesting lines, fun lines.
Didn't
And
expect me to have that take, did you?
yeah, certainly not. And I am positive this video is going to be demonetized on YouTube. Literally no money coming in from this one. Definitely. But it's okay. We had a really good discussion. And I think
All the more
that's-
reason to sub.
all the more reason to sub to the channel. I think so. To my audience, guys, we are going to continue on with Open Walk on Panel. We still have more content here for you. So if you've been liking what you've been seeing so far, hit that follow button right now. Hit that follow button. Make sure notifications are on so you know I'm going live. I do this all the time, and I don't want you to miss out on any of that content. For our social media, we got a lot of it. We got Twitter, where we let you know what's going on. Discord, Heart and Soul of the Community. That Open Walk on Panel we're doing, it's going to be on Discord. So check it out, and we do all the stuff there too. So stop by our Discord. TikTok is where you'll find the VODs. I'm sorry, not the VODs, but clips, fun clips. And then YouTube, of course, is where you find the VODs actually. So like, comment, subscribe there. We're going to give an outro to all these individuals, but stick around. We're not done. Stick around, and we'll continue from there. All right. So Wick, thank you for coming through, for being a part of this. Right. As always, I much appreciate having your smiling, bearded face on my screen. But Wick, tell a little about yourself.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate the invite. It has been a very interesting discussion. You can find me at twitch.tv/deathofcertainty. That's all one word, no spaces, no caps, no anything like that. And we always try to remember that no matter how right we think we are, there's always a possibility that we might be wrong. We need to entertain that. I do a lot of panels on Mondays and Fridays. They're very good. We have some very excellent guests. We had Lactoid and Corey Campbell on my one earlier today. I got them warmed up for your Prime. You're welcome. It was a very interesting discussion. Tuesdays, we have my open call-in show where me and my lovely co-host Kaylee Marie will take your calls and can't solve your problems, but we can listen to them. And Thursdays, I'm trying to do a one-on-one segment with interesting people. This Thursday, we have Flo Trace. Next Thursday is Corey Campbell. And the following Thursday is Not So Erudite, so it should be fun. Check me out, gang. Give me follows. It would really help. Really appreciate you. Again, Prime, thanks for having me. This has been great. It's my closing statement here. War photography good. But if a parent of a dead child wants you to take their picture off of your report, you probably listen to them. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for thoroughly lubricating lactoid inquiry for me. All right, let's go
did a
to
good
my man, Scott. Scott, thank you for stopping by and giving your perspective.
I'm Scott from Fabian Liberty. We're an anarcho-capitalist duo stream. We always bring the base takes, and I appreciate you having me. We do a lot of interviews, philosophy reading night, news breakdowns, the occasional debates, and things like that. This Thursday at 8 p.m. EST, we will be interviewing Buck Angel, Tranpaw himself. Should be super fun. And also, I would like to close because there was a bit of a discussion about rhetoric. So I'd like to close from a quote from Abraham Lincoln on the importance of using emotional appeals and not just using logos when speaking to people. And this from his temperance address in 1842. It is an old and true maxim that a drop of honey catches more than a gallon of gall. So with men, if you would win a man to your cause, first convince him that you are his sincere friend. Therein is a drop of honey that catches the heart, which, say what he will, is the great high road in his reason, and which, once gained, you will find but little trouble in convincing his judgment of his justice, of the justice of your cause, if indeed that cause really be a just one. On the contrary, assume to dictate his judgment, or to command his action, or to mark him to be shunned or despised, and he will retreat within himself, close all avenues to his head and his heart, and though your cause be naked truth itself, transformed to the heaviest lance, harder than steel, sharper than steel, and can be made, and though you throw it with more Herculean strength and precision, you shall be no more able to pierce him than to penetrate the hard shell of a tortoise with a rye straw. Have a good one.
That was interesting. That was actually, I've never heard that, so thank you. Seriously, Scott, thank you for sharing that with us. All right, next we have our friend Lactoid, right? He was classing up the joint here. We really didn't deserve it, clearly. Lactoid, thank you for stopping by. I'm always really excited to have you around because your perspective is always a bit more interesting, and you're easy to talk to, so thank you, buddy.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to use my closing I want to address kind of the big tent nature, which I think is a beautiful aspect of libertarianism. There's a couple people on this panel who I think, for Scott is kind of more the extreme anarcho-capitalist perspective. I respect that, and I consider him a champion of liberty as well. However, I do have some disagreements, right? I do think a state should exist, and I do think the state does have a right to catch, lock up, and to force labor again from rapists and murderers. I'm also fine with restrictions and censorship on particular things when it comes to displaying to children or when it comes to things about children. And my logic here is quite simply, I think the state does have a paternal interest in protecting children, that it simply does not have the same interest when it comes to addressing adults. You can find me on Anti-Communism United on Twitch and Discord. And big thank you to Prime for inviting me again. And I hope to be on here again soon.
Absolutely, you will. All right, next we're going to our friend Sonia. Sonia, always excited to have you around. Thank you. Especially when you get fired up. You got pretty fired up today, and I like that. Sonia, so thank you.
It's kind of rare that I get fired up. Yeah, Zonia. Again at Twitch, Zonia Dead, no underscore, just one word. And I am not streaming much these days, so I don't know. Maybe I'll get around to streaming again soon here. But kind of taking a break from a lot of this stuff and just kind of doing panels on the down low here and there. So yeah, fun time with you guys. Got a little heated, got a little contentious, even got a little bit heated with my friend Doobie. But no, no, these are good topics, and they really kind of got me thinking too, especially the second topic. So I like that. I like when a topic gets me thinking and gets me outside of my comfort zone. Uh, yeah, and I really enjoyed all of you guys in chat. I had fun. Some people were angry with me. Some people were very shocked with me as well, and were telling me about how shocked they were. And the last thing, let's see if we can get some bits and get some donos here for Prime. He puts on this stream for us every single night. He is he never misses one, and he puts up with our shit. He puts up with Scott. He puts up with Fanatic. He puts up with me, and I think he deserves a little something for that. So if you can give anything at all, if you can afford just a few bits here, or maybe a sub hit there, that would be great. So let's see if we can get something, maybe pull off like a hype train or something too. Anyways, thank you for letting me do my spiel.
Oh, thank you. Right. And dealing with Scott and Fnatic is a burden of love, obviously. So I mean, look at Scott's true big face, right? Like, who wouldn't want to deal with that weekly? So thank you so much.
Calling me fat? That's fucked up.
Oh,
I've heard you
man.
call yourself that. So
Dude,
Uh,
I stopped drinking soda. I'm like day
Oh,
8 on just drinking
congrats.
tea and water. Right?
That's no easy feat. You're on
I'm
the good path.
fiending right now. There might be a little extra spicy because I ain't had a Monster energy drink in over a week.
Oh man. Well, I hope you get your whatever your goals are. I hope you accomplish them. Volt Rise, thank you for the 500 bits, and thank you for the subs on your dead trying to get us started. And then Eucharist gifting 200 bits. Oh, guys, I literally yelled at Eucharist. I started an ideological fight with him earlier, like in the morning. Just like I immediately just sent him a message that I knew would inflame him, and then now here he is supporting the channel. So thank you, buddy. He's a really cool guy. We're at level 1 hype train, 40% down, 60% left, 4.5 minutes to the clock. Can we get to a level 2 hype train? Sub to the channel, give bits, or give subs. Help us get this done. Support this community. If you like all the things we're doing, we do a lot for you. Okay, Pan, right? We bring you Pan. We do that for you. Pan, please.
Yeah, pleasure as always. I still think that despite Fabian's closing statement about how and I agree that we must use emotion to convince people. I do think that if our aim is to be independent media platforms and try to inform the public rather than convince the public, I do think we should probably use more logical arguments, even if that's not what convinces people, because the job of a media organization, in my opinion, well, what it should be in my ideal world, which doesn't exist, sadly, is to basically just convey information without spin. Obviously, though, we don't live in that world. We're all activists. So, we should always use emotion to try to convince people of our takes. I'm also libertarian. I'm probably in between Scott and Lactoid. I've got a lot of differences with both of them. I think that you should have a state. I don't think it necessarily needs to protect children, but some protections are probably warranted, because there's wackos out there like Doobie who are going to, find your children and do, I don't know, just probably sell them illegal candy. So you gotta protect your children from Doobie. Yeah, I guess that's it.
Thank you so much, buddy. Much appreciated. All right. And guys, how about that hype train? We have less than 3 minutes left, 40% down. Can we get to a level 2 hype train? Sub to the channel or use your Amazon Prime, just Prime Gaming. Yeah, 1 free sub per month. Use that here. If you like all the content, if you keep coming back and you like what we're doing, sub to the channel, support this channel by using that free sub. Help us move this hype train along, get to a level 2 hype train. Okay, let's go to my man Fanatic. Fanatic, dude, it was a lot of fun. Especially when that first topic, you were super fired up. I love to see you like that, of course. But thank you for being on.
I'd like to see me like that too. Fortunately, that first topic was it. There wasn't really much in the second topic. It was just everyone else's opinion, and they were just wrong. So there wasn't really any pushback. I like a zinger of like a punchline, or what I'm saying, or whatever I'm gonna give, whatever my take is. And it's like, if my take is just basically something so simple, then it just feels like it kind of lost a lot of its luster, because I mean, it was just factually accurate. So then it was like, what the freak are we like? It doesn't really, not saying much. Kind of sucked. Anyway, listen, I appreciate being in these panels. You guys know where you guys can find me, twitch.tv/MidgetFanatic. Who cares about that? Listen to my music, because I am a really, really talented musician. Now, it's bad for a person to say that about themselves typically, but it's just a fact of the matter. I am a talented musician, and you should check it out and see for yourself. And then you can see that I'm not BSing you. I'm good at what I do. All my music can be found under the name Fanatic, Fanatiq. Yeah, that's that.
Okay, thank you. How about that hype train? We have a minute left on the clock. Subs to the channel, give bits or give subs. Keep that hype train going. Help us out. Again, if you're enjoying this content, like all the things we provided for you. You get ad-free viewing, and you'll get our emotes. Assist the channel if you could. We have less than a minute left. Let's go to Corey Campbell.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'll just wrap up in terms of my closing statement. So I find it interesting that when talking about rhetoric and graphic imagery, like Scott read a quote from Abraham Lincoln, which there was no graphic imagery, as far as I can tell, involved with that, and that was a good quote. That invoked, as in, I think you can invoke, whatever, pathos and ethos through words. And you don't always need graphic imagery or imagery in general. But there is certainly a place for imagery, even graphic imagery, and I'm all for transparency and the sharing of information. But I do think it's a little bit tricky when it comes to showing the graphic imagery of minors specifically. But aside from that, I'm generally like, yeah, if it's not a minor, you can be transparent, and I'm all for the sharing of information. And that's more or less where my stance is. And so I want to thank you, Prime, for reaching out. Super grateful. Much appreciated. I never take it for granted. And I want to thank everyone on the panel, Wick, Scott, Lactoid, Polite Pan, and Zonia. Pleasure to meet you. Fanatic and Doobie. Much appreciated. I'm Corey Campbell. I'm a PhD candidate in biochemistry, and I also work part-time at a biotech startup. You can find me on twitch.tv, Corey Campbell 84, and Twitter and Instagram, literally, it's Corey Campbell. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Last but not least, we have my man Doobie. Doobie, thank you for all the things that you do, and thank you for coming through and always being a kind member of this community, man. And just being a lot of fun to talk to. So, Doobie, tell a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I'm Doobie. You can find me at the politics server on Discord, discord.gg/politics, the best and biggest politics server on the platform. We have just confirmed, actually, while I was on the panel, that we're going to be having Roger Stone on the server on Tuesday, next Tuesday, not tomorrow, next Tuesday. He will be on the server for an AMA for about an hour and a half. We'll be taking questions, all that kind of good stuff. And he'll be there at 6 p.m. Pacific, so 9 p.m. Eastern. Okay,
Trump's
you guys
Roger
are more than
Stone?
welcome to. Yeah, Trump's Roger Stone.
How the hell do you get Roger Stone?
No, he's been working on it for a
Have
while.
the largest
Jesus.
politics Discord in existence? I don't know.
Yeah, it should be a good time.
That'll do it.
Didn't know he knew how to use a computer. Shit.
Hey, if you were a lawn and garden, you could the Four Seasons Lawn and Garden. You could have gotten Rudy Giuliani too. So
they've gotten other big names too. They've gotten Daryl Davis as well.
I got my logo for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nobody's mentioned it. Spike Cohen. Get the fuck out of here. I hate you all.
We just had Brett Cooper last week, who's like one of the up and coming. She's like a female Ben Shapiro, for being honest.
She's like a female Ben Shapiro if she only did reaction videos and didn't like actually talk about anything.
She's like a fake streamer. Though I think she does stream some of the time because she got called out on that because she's like the streamer aesthetic. But she was cool. She's like a conservative Zoomer person.
I'm on there too occasionally. So
he's there too. Discord.gg/politics. That's where you'll find that stuff.
The link is in chat. Okay, thanks so much.
You'll find me there too.
Everyone should go take a look. All right. Yeah. So anyway, thanks all to my fantastic panel. This was really great. I really enjoyed it. Hope you did at home as well. We're going to go on to open walk on panel. Anyone here can join us, but if not, that's okay. Thanks for spending your time, your energy, your knowledge, and your passion with my community. I know they appreciate it just as much as I do. Have a good one. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.